Chapter 1092. He couldn't help but be furious. If it wasn't for the fact that he had cultivated the animal play and reacted faster than others, allowing the Tai Chi light ball to rotate in time to disperse the force, the consequences would be unimaginable. If it was someone else, Jin Tai's sneak attack would have succeeded. But then again, if it wasn't for the fact that he was trapped in the Tai Chi light ball and couldn't teleport away quickly, he might not have been injured. On the other hand, without the protection of the Tai Chi light ball, he would have died in Jin Tai's hands. Therefore, it was difficult to get the best of both worlds. With a deafening roar, the black and white streams of light in the Tai Chi light ball suddenly compressed from top to bottom. In a flash, a circular Tai Chi light disc was formed under Bai Changchun's feet. The entire Tai Chi light ball lost its black and white colors and became a transparent light ball. The light ball rotated, and Bai Changchun stepped on the black and white yin and yang fishes. Instantly, his figure couldn't be seen clearly, and only a green shadow could be seen spinning rapidly in the light ball. Boom! The golden cloud rod made a loud noise. Bang, bang, bang. Countless fist shadows hit the light ball with a momentum that could destroy everything. The fist shadows disappeared, and in an instant, no one knew how many punches had been made. At this time, Bai Chi's figure slowly appeared in everyone's sight like a shadow, showing how fast he was. However, the two didn't get the result they expected, and they looked at each other in surprise. The reason was obviously related to the strange phenomenon in the light ball. Bai Chi's eyes turned cold. Although he looked like a scholar and had a good temper, as someone who sat on the underworld emperor's throne, how could he be a soft-hearted person? He had already made his move, and he would not stop until he achieved his goal. Bai Changchun. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Today is the day you die. Don't even think about leaving this place alive. Bai Chi coldly snorted. His elegant white robes fluttered in the wind as his killing intent surged. Break! Jin Tai didn't have so much time to talk. He just wanted to kill Bai Changchun, who was a threat in the future. He swung the golden cloud rod and hit the light ball in front of him. Bai Chi took out an ancient mirror that looked like a cattail leaf fan. The surface of the mirror was smooth and dark like stagnant water in the night, and there were complicated inscriptions engraved on it. Bai Chi's left hand skimmed across the surface of the ancient mirror, while his right hand held the handle of the ancient mirror and shone it at the ball of light that Bai Changchun was hiding in. In an instant, a jagged black light suddenly burst out from the pitch-black surface of the mirror. As it swallowed and spat, the black light exploded and instantly bombarded the ball of light, obsidian underworld light mirror. Wanbusheng and Longsheng exclaimed in unison. Those who knew about this mirror all gasped. It was rumored that this mirror was a treasure that the previous underworld emperors had fought over, and it could be regarded as the symbol of the previous underworld emperors. As for its origin, no one knew. In any case, it had been passed down in the underworld for a long time. It was said that the emperor of the underworld, Bai Chi, had only used the obsidian underworld light mirror twice in the past. The first time was when he fought against the demon monarch of 10,000 swords, and he relied on this mirror to resist the attack of the demon monarch of 10,000 swords, saving his life. The other time was when he was suppressing a large-scale rebellion in the underworld. Once the obsidian underworld light mirror was taken out, it immediately devoured the lives of millions of meditation cultivators. Its power was really extraordinary, but for some reason, the emperor of the underworld would never take it out unless it was a critical moment. Unexpectedly, he used it on Bai Changchun this time. At this time, under the joint attack of the emperor of the underworld and the immortal emperor, the heaven and earth changed color. The entire immortal palace was shaking violently as if it was going to fall from the sky at any time. The loud rumbling drowned out all the sounds in the world, and even the roaring thunder in the sky was drowned out. Everyone sighed endlessly. The immortal emperor took out the golden cloud rod, and the emperor of the underworld took out the obsidian underworld light mirror. Both of them took out their special treasures. These two immortal and underworld supremes were obviously determined to kill Bai Changchun no matter what. Yu Qianzhou's eyes were about to split open. He no longer cared whether Bai Changchun would blame him or not, and he forcefully held the two purple flames in his palms. In an instant, the sky seemed to be blown up by the thunder in the dark clouds. Bang, bang, bang. Countless thunder illuminated the world, and crazily struck the immortal palace floating in the sky. Bang, bang, bang. The glittering light spots that were as dense as a series of cannons were isolated on the glazed light shield that wrapped around the immortal palace. Wave after wave of continuous attacks immediately showed an unusually terrifying and magnificent strange scene, which was extremely spectacular. However, although it looked beautiful, it seemed to be a little less powerful. The glazed light shield was not moved at all. The sudden appearance of the strange phenomenon made everyone feel strange. How could there be such dense and continuous thunder? It was obviously not a natural phenomenon, but someone was driving it with a great technique. Everyone swept their gazes in all directions, seemingly wanting to find the person who had attacked from the shadows. Bai Qi and Jin Tai also couldn't help but take a look at the sky. The latter looked around and said sternly, "How dare you? Who is it?" As if to answer him, the dense and violent thunder in the sky suddenly disappeared, and condensed into a giant thunder with a diameter of tens of meters. In an instant, it broke through the dense dark clouds and struck down. Boom! A loud sound filled the world, and a powerful shock wave spread out with a rumbling sound. The glazed light shield that enveloped the entire immortal palace shook violently, and it was almost split open. Everyone could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable, but they were still shocked. It was the first time they had seen such a thick thunder. It was too rare. "Who is it?" Jin Tai roared angrily. He was really angry. Today was his big day, but there were actually people who came to cause trouble one after another. This was intolerable. Don't look for him. This person can communicate with the heavenly thunder, and I have already experienced it. Bai Qi Ming stared at Bai Changchun with a serious expression. The ancient mirror in his hand once again pressed forward, and the uneven black light rotated rapidly, as if it wanted to grind the light ball and the person into powder. Him? I have formed a separate world here, and it should be able to prevent him from communicating with the outside world. Before Jin Tai could finish his words, he suddenly looked up and saw another giant thunder crashing down. He swung the golden cloud rod in his hand, and the glazed light shield that enveloped the entire immortal palace suddenly exploded with a sky-piercing golden light. Boom! The giant thunder was directly destroyed, and the powerful shock wave dispersed the dark clouds in the sky, allowing the sun to shine down again. Yu Qianzhou, who was hiding under the golden umbrella, suddenly let out a muffled groan. His body swayed slightly, and a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Qing Nyang quickly looked at the dispersed dark clouds in the sky, and she turned around in surprise, asking suspiciously, "What happened to you?" Yu Qianzhou's face was deathly pale, and he shook his head to indicate that he was fine. In reality, he was holding back a mouthful of blood, and he was trying his best not to spit it out. Bang, bang, bang. The violent sounds of attacks became more and more frequent. Everyone looked over and saw that the immortal emperor and emperor of the netherworld had already increased their attacks, and no one knew how long Bai Changchun could last. Bai Qi, who was controlling the obsidian light mirror to increase its power, suddenly narrowed his eyes. He suddenly discovered that every time he and Jin Tai attacked, the Tai Chi light under Bai Changchun's feet would become more solid, as if it was collecting the energy from their attacks. By now, the Tai Chi light seemed to have become solid, and it was as smooth as a real object. Who knew how much energy it had accumulated? A terrifying thought flashed through Bai Qi's mind, and he quickly retracted the black light from the obsidian light mirror. He raised his hand and shouted, "We've been tricked. Jin Tai, stop." Jin Tai knew that Bai Qi wouldn't say something like this for no reason, so he quickly stopped and looked at him in confusion. Suddenly, everyone found that Bai Changchun, who was standing on the Tai Chi disc in the ball of light, had stopped. He suddenly opened his eyes, which were full of vigor, and a sonorous cold snort resounded through the sky. "Qin Tai! Open your eyes and watch this old man break your golden world." His green robe swelled up as if it was filled with air, and the light ball outside quickly retracted into the Tai Chi light under his feet. His palms, which were on his lower abdomen, pushed to the left and right as fast as lightning. The black and white yin-yang fishes under his feet separated in an instant, splitting into yin and yang at the speed of lightning. Two bright light shadows shot towards the two people on the left and right. "Ah, not good." Feeling the terrifying power contained in the two inconspicuous light shadows, Jin Tai and Bai Qi exclaimed at the same time, and almost subconsciously used the treasures in their hands to block. The obsidian light mirror in Bai Qi's hand suddenly burst out a powerful black light to kill the incoming white light, and the golden cloud rod in Jin Tai's hand instantly swelled to the size of a pillar, blocking himself. In the explosion of the strong light, Bai Qi looked up to the sky and spat out a mouthful of blood. He desperately controlled the ancient mirror to block the remaining power of the opponent's attack, but he was still sent flying. Kim Tae, along with the golden pillar, was also sent flying. Everyone only saw two powerful balls of light, one black and one white, explode rapidly. The glazed light barrier that enveloped the immortal palace rapidly expanded and collapsed. Then, they heard a terrifying explosion that shook the heavens and the earth, almost deafening everyone. The people who were watching the show around were all blown away by the powerful shock wave. Fortunately, the glazed light shield first reduced most of the powerful impact, otherwise there would be a lot of casualties outside. Everyone stabilized their bodies and looked back again, only to see the sky full of golden dust flying, under the light of the setting sun, colorful and beautiful. Suddenly, hundreds of mountains around the immortal palace exploded, and the earth trembled violently. Those who had experience immediately judged that the foundation supporting the immortal palace to float in the air had all collapsed. Not good. The immortal palace is about to fall. Below the immortal palace, there were screams everywhere. Countless streams of light desperately tried to escape. A huge black shadow rapidly descended from the sky and smashed down with a boom. The earth shook, and some people who didn't react in time were immediately suppressed under it. After many people fled to the distance, they couldn't help but look back and want to see what the falling immortal palace looked like, but the smoke and dust were everywhere, and they couldn't see anything clearly. Then, he heard the endless sounds of fighting from inside. The powerful airwave instantly dispersed the dust in the surroundings. The once glorious immortal palace was now slightly tilting on the huge hillside. The majestic golden palace had already been mostly destroyed. The golden palace that was originally 100 meters tall was only left with a few meters of crumbled walls that were twisted and hideous in front of everyone's eyes. Chapter 1093. The immortal palace was destroyed like this? Everyone was dumbfounded. In the air, Ji Wu, who had escaped in time when the immortal palace fell, held Yi Shuojuan with one hand and played with Lu Yanqing's arm with the other. Nia Shaoqian and the 6 great commanders were also floating in the air, looking at the battle below with pale faces. The 3 terrifying fellows were once again fighting to the death. It wasn't something that they, the so-called experts, could interfere in. Although they were usually regarded as experts in the celestial world, they were not worth mentioning at all in the eyes of the 3 people below. Any one of them could kill them in seconds. So even if they wanted to help the Celestial Emperor, they were powerless. What's more, some people were already looking at them suspiciously. No one knew what they were thinking. These people were still alive, but Wang Qing, who was standing high on the roof of the immortal palace, was missing. The sounds of fighting below stopped after a while. There was no other reason. Bai Changchun had formed another ball of light and was hiding inside it, stepping on the Tai Chi light disc. The gentle and elegant emperor of the underworld Bai Qi's white robe was messy, and his snow-white clothes were stained with his own blood. His image was greatly reduced. Immortal Emperor Jin Tai was not much better. The golden crown on his head was lost again, and his hair was messy. One of them was holding the obsidian underworld light mirror, and the other was holding the golden cloud rod. They looked at Bai Changchun in the light ball and gritted their teeth. However, they did not dare to make a move. They had almost lost their lives, so they did not dare to be fooled again. In fact, if it were not for the treasures in their hands, they would have been removed from the immortal realm and the netherworld. The two of them were scared when they thought about it. Bai Changchun. What's the use of hiding inside? If you have the ability, come out and fight to the death with me. Jin Tai pointed the golden cloud rod in his hand. He could not hide the anger on his face. Not only was the immortal palace destroyed, but his reputation in the immortal realm was also ruined. Moreover, it happened on his happy day. He had countless reasons to be angry. Despicable people are not worthy of talking to me openly. Bai Changchun snorted disdainfully. He looked around at the two people and said indifferently, "Your heads will be temporarily placed on your necks. I will come back to take them in the future." The meaning behind his words was clear. He was leaving. He knew in his heart that with his current strength, he wouldn't be able to do anything to these two even if he stayed behind. It was impossible for him to borrow their strength to attack. The two of them wouldn't be able to take advantage of him again, so there was no point in wasting time. However, how could Jin Tai and Bai Qi be willing to let this fellow, whose cultivation was progressing at a godly speed, leave in vain? If they let him go today, it was indeed possible that he would come to take their heads in the future, just like he said. The two of them subconsciously blocked his way, but they didn't know what to do. It seemed like there was no better way than to talk. Could they kill someone with words? Jin Tai was not willing to let him go like this. He could only shout dryly, "Stop. So what if I stand still? What can you do to me?" Bai Changchun's cold eyes swept over and he snorted with extreme disdain, "Ridiculous." He flew up with the ball and was about to leave. At this moment, an indifferent voice was heard, "Brother Bai, please wait for a moment." The three people who had fought fiercely without a clear winner turned their heads to look at the same time. They saw a figure in a blue robe walking out from the broken golden palace door. The most eye-catching thing was the silver mask. Who else could it be other than the Heartless Palace's sect master Wang Qing? Wang Qing stood outside the broken golden palace door with an indifferent expression and looked at the three people calmly. The fresh mountain breeze after the battle blew over. The loose blue robe swayed and the long hair behind the silver mask danced in the wind. He walked out from the ruins of the battle and stood there quietly. He gave off an otherworldly feeling. His hands were gently crossed on his lower abdomen. The three of them couldn't help but frown. They all felt a strange feeling from him. It was as if it wasn't the three of them who fought just now, but him, Wang Qing. After experiencing the fierce battle just now, he had been reborn. It was this indescribable strange feeling. Oh, it's the sect master Wang Qing of the Heartless Palace. Bai Changchun didn't dare to underestimate this person because he had felt the dangerous aura from him before. He asked, "I wonder what sect master Wang Qing has to teach me." "Brother Bai, you are too kind." Wang Qing's blue robe fluttered in the mountain breeze. He said in a flat tone, "I've been fortunate enough to witness Brother Bai's heroic spirit in battle. How can I not express my gratitude to Brother Bai now that the demons in my heart that have troubled me for so many years have been removed?" Bai Changchun was stunned. He looked at him up and down again and nodded thoughtfully. Sect leader Wang Qing is too polite. On the path of cultivation, some things will come naturally. Even if others help you dig a path out of the ground, if you don't have enough foundation like water to flow smoothly, how can it become a canal? There is no need to say thank you to an outsider. Goodbye. Stepping on yin and yang, reversing the universe. Once this method was used, even the Emperor of the Underworld and the Immortal Emperor were helpless. I really admire you. Wang Qing looked at Bai Changchun's back and said lightly, Wang Qing is not talented. I have comprehended the sixth move of the sword drawing style by chance, but I have never tried it. I didn't expect to see Brother Bai's unbreakable method today. I am really excited. As soon as he said that, everyone was taken aback. Wang Qing had actually comprehended the sixth move of the sword drawing style. How powerful would it be? What shocked everyone the most was that Wang Qing's words were clearly to challenge Bai Changchun. Did he really think that the sixth move of the sword drawing style could break the method that even the Emperor of the Underworld and the Immortal Emperor couldn't break? The sixth move of the sword drawing style. Bai Changchun suddenly turned around and stared at Wang Qing. He vaguely guessed that the source of the aura that made him feel dangerous before was probably the sixth move of the sword drawing style. He asked, "You want to challenge me?" Oh! What a joke! Jin Tai laughed loudly. In fact, he felt insulted. He was an immortal emperor and the emperor of the underworld working together couldn't break the great method, but this Wang Qing actually challenged Bai Changchun at this time. It was clear that Wang Qing thought that he was stronger than him. Wasn't this a public slap to his face? He immediately shouted, Wang Qing. You are just a defeated opponent of mine, how dare you speak so shamelessly here? The grievances between the three of us are not for you to interfere. Bai Qi's eyes flashed as he stared at Wang Qing. Wang Qing didn't seem to hear Jin Tai's words at all. He looked at Bai Changchun and said indifferently, I am not challenging you. Brother Bai and Wang Qing are both late-stage immortal emperors, but Brother Bai fought the Emperor of the Underworld and the immortal emperors by himself. I think the three of you must have consumed a lot of your cultivation in this fierce battle. Wang Qing didn't think that if he challenged Brother Bai alone or learned from Brother Bai to challenge the Emperor of the Underworld and the immortal emperors, he would be at an advantage. I really don't want to take advantage of this, so I want to challenge all three of you at the same time. Bai Qi, Jin Tai, and Bai Changchun glanced at each other and thought that they had heard wrongly. However, from their expressions, they could see that everyone heard the same unbelievable words. The surroundings were silent. Wang Qing actually wanted to challenge the Emperor of the Underworld, the immortal emperors, and Bai Changchun at the same time. Was he frightened by the battle just now? Only one person's expression was different from the others. It was the mythical Fire Palace's sect master Huajun, Huaxiaozi, who personally created the six-dragon snow blue sword. His expression was slightly excited. He also wanted to see how much power the sword he spent tens of thousands of years to create would be in the hands of Wang Qing. Wang Qing's eyes under the silver mask had already slowly closed, ignoring the gazes of the crowd. His long hair fluttered down his back, and his blue robe was as calm as still water. A thick murderous intent lingered around his body, condensing and not dispersing, as if it was real. He stood there straight, like a sword stuck there. At this time, Wang Qing didn't seem like he was Wang Qing, but a sword. After Jin Tai was stunned, he suddenly burst into a monstrous laughter. His heart was filled with anger. He didn't expect that in one day, he would depreciate to such an extent. Someone just came out and wanted to bully him. This was really seeing a ghost. The previous Bai Changchun was fine, but now even this loser jumped out to humiliate him. If he didn't set up the array, how could he bear it? How could he rule the entire immortal world in the future? The golden cloud rod in his hand pointed at Wang Qing and shouted angrily, Wang Qing. How dare you? Good. I will fulfill your wish. There is no need for the two of them. Today, I will let you understand what it means to live a life worse than death. Wang Qing's eyes suddenly opened, shining with a bright light. The two sword-shaped eyes actually made a slight sound in the air and pierced towards Jin Tai. Jin Tai was slightly shocked. He didn't dare to look directly at it and slightly tilted his head to avoid it. What a strong sword intent! Bai Qi said with a cold breath. Bai Changchun didn't say anything. The light ball protecting him had already begun to spin faster. Suddenly, Wang Qing's hands on his abdomen finally moved. It was fine if he didn't move, but once he moved, everything in the world would disappear. A sonorous sword sound reverberated between heaven and earth, shocking everyone's mind. A dazzling snow-blue light was pulled out by Wang Qing, and with an unbelievable speed, it directly swept towards the three people in front of him. In an instant, the entire Paradise Immortal realm erupted with the most dazzling light in the entire immortal world. The soul-stirring snow-blue light painted with confusion and desolation was so magnificent and enchanting that even the setting sun felt ashamed of its inferiority. At this moment, there was nothing that could cover up this dazzling blooming light. The powerful black light that erupted from the obsidian light mirror in Bai Qi's hand was directly forced back by the sweeping snow-blue light. The obsidian light mirror crazily expanded and blocked in front of him. Boom! A sword mark was left on the surface of the mirror forever, and the unparalleled power directly knocked Bai Qi and the mirror away, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Boom! The golden cloud rod in front of Kinta couldn't block the snow-blue light and was directly broken into two pieces. Ah! Kinta let out a blood-curdling screech as he was directly turned into golden powder by the snow-blue light. Boom! The sphere of light that was protecting Bai Changchun blocked the snow-blue light. However, it only managed to block it for a short while before the sphere of light collapsed. Bai Changchun looked up to the sky and spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. Chapter 1094. Everyone only felt that the world was covered in a snowy blue color and nothing else could be seen. After 3 loud bangs, the dazzling snowy blue light suddenly disappeared. The surroundings were still the same as before. Compared to before, they could not see any place that had suffered from a violent attack. They did not even feel any large fluctuations in the air. After 3 loud bangs, the snowy blue light disappeared and there was no more movement. Almost everyone did not see clearly what had happened. It was hard to imagine that Wang Qing had already made a move. However, the scream that came from Jintai's mouth did not seem fake. The most terrifying thing was that not only did Emperor of the Underworld Bai Qi and Bai Changchun fly far away, there was also a dark red mark at the corner of their mouths. They were slowly climbing up from the ground as if they had been seriously injured. Jintai's golden cloud rod was broken into 2 pieces on the ground. Where did Jintai go after that scream? Everyone looked at Wang Qing, who had brazenly pulled out a snowy blue light. In bewilderment, a huge sword with an extraordinary aura and a strange shape stood at the place where Wang Qing had just stood. It was a full 5 meters long, sparkling and translucent snowy blue. The sword hilt was formed by 6 flying dragons, and the entire huge sword was surrounded by flowing lights. Such a huge sword? Everyone was shocked. Bai Qi and Bai Changchun, who had been injured by the sword, had solemn expressions as they looked at the sword. One look and they could tell that this sword was extraordinary. Ing, the sound of the sword rang out, and the huge sword was slowly inserted into the ground. As the snowy blue huge sword disappeared, Wang Qing, who was standing behind the huge sword, gradually appeared in front of everyone. After the sword was inserted into the golden ground, the sword hilt, which was formed by 6 flying dragons, was just in front of Wang Qing. The eyes behind the silver mask were still indifferent. His hands were crossed on his abdomen, unmoving, as if nothing had happened. However, at this moment, he made everyone feel a huge invisible pressure. The sect leader of the mythical fire palace, Hua Jun, looked at the huge sword inserted into the golden ground and was extremely excited. Wang Qing had indeed not let down his efforts. At this moment, dense dark clouds rolled in from all directions, accompanied by the sound of thunder. A majestic and vast qi floated and vibrated between heaven and earth. Everyone quickly looked around the sky, and they were all slightly shocked. This movement had already begun to form the Dharma of heaven and earth, and it was obvious that someone was controlling it. Under the golden umbrella, Qingyang's eyes flashed as she looked at Yu Qianqiu. In actuality, when the furious lightning struck the immortal palace, she faintly suspected that it had something to do with Yu Qianqiu. In the end, she saw Yu Qianqiu looking around in shock, as if he didn't know what was going on either. Yu Qianqiu truly didn't know what was going on, because this commotion wasn't caused by him at all. Even if he did, with his current cultivation, he wouldn't be able to cause such a huge commotion. To be able to summon such a vast dark cloud, he was still far from being able to do so. The most important thing was that he had secretly attacked Jin Taixuan without knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. As a result, Jin Taixuan's counterattack made him understand that there were some levels of fighting that he could not intervene in with his little cultivation. He was heavily injured on the spot, but he didn't show it. Now, he was silently recovering, and there was no way he could forcefully use his cultivation to do anything. "Brother Bai, could it be that you still want to put up a futile resistance?" Wang Qing calmly looked at Bai Changchun and said, "The lightning that Brother Bai summoned couldn't even break through the barrier of the immortal palace. Do you really think it can do anything to me?" He also mistakenly thought that the heavenly lightning that struck the barrier was summoned by Bai Changchun. When everyone heard this, they saw golden arcs of light flashing around Bai Changchun's body, faintly drawing in the majestic and vast qi between heaven and earth. At this time, the dark cloud with countless lightning snakes in the sky plunged the earth into darkness again. Bai Changchun didn't explain that he wasn't the one who caused the lightning. He just snorted and said, "Sect leader Wang Qing's sword-drawing style is indeed worthy of its reputation. It can actually condense such a powerful force into a single line in an instant without any leakage. On the contrary, I feel that this trip wasn't in vain." Wang Qing said indifferently, "Although it's my first time meeting Brother Bai, I feel like old friends at first sight. From today onwards, the immortal world will belong to my heartless palace. I heard that Brother Bai has always been a loner. Why don't you join my heartless palace? I promise I won't restrict Brother Bai's freedom. What does Brother Bai think?" Everyone was shocked when they heard this. The Heartless Palace was the #1 sect in the celestial world. Now that Wang Qing had displayed his valiant strength and killed Celestial Emperor Jin Tai, it was just as Wang Qing had said, the celestial world was indeed going to belong to the Heartless Palace. At this point, Bai Changchun shouldn't refuse such a temptation. If Wang Qing and Bai Changchun joined forces, perhaps even Emperor of the Underworld Bai Qi would be in danger. Bai Qi quickly glanced at the two of them warily. Suddenly, a burst of laughter echoed throughout the ruined immortal palace. He said, "What a joke. How can the immortal world belong to your heartless palace when I'm still here? What a fool's dream." Jin Tai. Bai Qi exclaimed and looked around in surprise. Bai Changchun also looked around in shock. The others didn't see it clearly, but the two of them saw with their own eyes that Jin Tai was killed by Wang Qing's sword. How could he still be alive? There was a sudden uproar in the surroundings. Nia Xiaoqian and the others, who were secretly preparing to escape, immediately became spirited. They saw the hope of turning the tables again. Among them, Wu Xiong's face was gloomy. Ji Wu and Er Shuejuan's faces frowned. Jin Tai's survival was beyond everyone's expectations. Even Wang Qing's usually calm eyes flashed with surprise as he looked around vigilantly. Beside Emperor of the Underworld Bai Qi, a golden light shone on the ground. The well-dressed Jin Tai suddenly rose from it. He opened his hand, and the two halves of the golden cloud rod immediately fused together. In the blink of an eye, the two halves returned to their original state and flashed into Jin Tai's hand. "Are you really Jin Tai? You really didn't die?" Bai Qi was overjoyed and asked. Although the two of them were usually at odds, they always relied on and supported each other at critical moments. This was beneficial for the two of them to rule the immortal world and the netherworld. The others were also examining the new immortal Emperor Jin Tai. In the distance, Yu Qianqiu revealed a thoughtful expression as he pondered about the matter of Jin Ling. "I've already cultivated the immortal golden body. It's a big joke to want to kill me. I'm just temporarily avoiding the blade." Jin Tai glanced at Bai Qi and stared at Wang Qing. He sneered and said, "Wang Qing. Others don't know your details. Do you think you can fool me, who has fought with you before? Your sword drawing style consumes a lot of cultivation. After the same style is used, you need at least 6 hours to recondense your essence, qi, and spirit before you can use it again. The same style can't be used continuously. The first 5 styles of the sword drawing style are simply child's play for the 3 of us. Are you trying to delay time here? Huh. So that's how it is. Everyone was suddenly enlightened and thought that Wang Qing was going to be unlucky this time. Even Emperor of the Underworld Bai Qi touched the sword mark on the obsidian light mirror and stared coldly at Wang Qing. However, Wang Qing still stood there without worry or fear. His gaze was indifferent as he said, "This is indeed a problem. The shackles of the sword drawing style made me not dare to act rashly before. I have been looking for a solution for many years. However, once I give up the powerful power of the sword drawing style, the sword drawing style becomes meaningless. Speaking of which, I have to thank the 3 of you for the fierce battle, which made Wang Qing have a new understanding in an instant." Humph. Even if you can draw the sword continuously, I want to see how many times you can withstand the consumption of the sword drawing style with your cultivation. Jin Tai pointed the golden cloud rod in his hand and said with a hideous smile, "Today, I will take your little life to correct the rules of the celestial world. I will let the world know the consequences of disrespecting the ruler as a warning to others. Why do I need to draw the sword a few more times? One sword is enough." Wang Qing said lightly, "Jin Tai, I don't believe that you can really keep your golden body indestructible under the 7th style of the sword drawing style. I will wait and see. There is a 7th style of the sword drawing style." There was an uproar in the surroundings. How powerful would it be? Bai Changchun frowned slightly, Bai Qi's pupils shrank suddenly, and Jin Tai's expression was slightly stiff. Only he knew whether he could really keep his golden body indestructible or not. "Brother Bai, I will ask you for the last time." Wang Qing looked at Bai Changchun calmly and said word by word, "Are you willing to join my heartless palace?" Bai Changchun, don't listen to his bewitchment, he is making a last-ditch struggle. Without waiting for Bai Changchun to answer, Qin Tai resolutely continued, "As long as you and I stand on the same side and kill this evil together, I will now guarantee in front of the world that I will let bygones be bygones for everything you have done today." He said that Wang Qing was making a last-ditch struggle, but in turn, he pulled Bai Changchun to deal with Wang Qing together. It could be said that he showed his capricious side without a doubt. Everyone couldn't help but ask themselves, how could they dare to believe such a despicable person? How can I miss the opportunity to experience the 7th style of the sword drawing style of sect leader Wang Qing? As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Even Bai Qi looked at Bai Changchun with some surprise. He didn't expect that Bai Changchun would be so obsessed that he would believe Jin Tai's nonsense. Who knew that in the blink of an eye, Bai Changchun pointed at Jin Tai and shouted angrily, "Jin Tai, you despicable person, do you think that I am a fool who can be easily fooled? This old man will not miss the 7th style of the sword drawing style. This old man will also take your dog head in the future." The meaning of his words was very clear. He would not rely on anyone, nor would he ally with anyone. Jin Tai's expression twisted, and he immediately turned hostile and said, "You will live through today first." He secretly communicated with Bai Qi, and a black light and a golden light attacked almost at the same time, launching a sneak attack on Wang Qing. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. 6 consecutive sword cries seemed to combine into one. 6 silhouettes of hands grabbed the 6 dragons on the hilt of the 6 dragon snow blue sword and pulled it out at the same time. The huge sword immediately turned into 6 dazzling blue lights. 6 shadows of hands appeared in front of Wang Qing, and at the same time, they pulled out the sword. It was as if there were 6 divine dragons imprisoned in his hands, and when he waved his hands, the 6 majestic dragons immediately roared and flew out. Chapter 1095. Roar. 6 dragons roared at the same time, shaking the heaven and earth. 6 giant dragons shining with a snowy blue light attacked at the same time with an earth-shattering momentum. Bang! Bang! With 2 loud bangs, the black light from the obsidian light mirror was directly dispersed, the golden cloud cudgel was bounced off, and the 6 giant dragons attacked at the same time. The 2 swift sneak attacks were instantly destroyed. The 2 huge snow-blue dragons chased after the 2 attackers in an imposing manner, as if they could devour the 2 of them in one gulp. Bai Qi and Jintai were shocked, and they teleported away at the same time. When they appeared again, the golden cloud cudgel was as thick as a pillar, and the obsidian light mirror was as big as a hammer. I don't believe that your broken sword can be stronger than the 10,000 swords of the demonic monarch of swords. Jintai's angry roar overshadowed the thunder. The 2 could become the supreme swordsmen of the immortal realm and the netherworld, so they were not cowards who could be easily scared off. Both of them shouted angrily at the same time. The golden and white silhouettes turned around and faced the 2 dragons that were chasing after them. Their clubs and hammers were smashed, and the rumbling sounds shook the heavens. The 2 men and the 2 dragons were engaged in a fierce battle. On the high platform, Wang Qing's eyes under the silver mask emitted a sharp light like a sword. His thin and long body under the wide blue robe stood straight with his hands behind his back. He hadn't moved a single step. The 4 dragons flying around him were vivid and lifelike, which shocked everyone. They didn't expect Wang Qing to be so powerful. Those with great vision would be able to see that these dragons were formed by the huge sword that had been divided into several parts. The dragon bodies that could be seen were because the sword will was so strong that it had reached the stage where the sword energy was like a rainbow and the dharma of heaven and earth took shape. The most shocking thing was that only 2 of the 6 sword dragons could entangle the Emperor of the Underworld and the Celestial Emperor. It was really powerful. However, what surprised everyone was that Wang Qing didn't attack Bai Changchun. Even Bai Changchun felt it was strange that Wang Qing still wanted to win him over. What everyone didn't know was that Wang Qing's one sword 6 styles had just begun to form a divine ability, and it was a bit difficult for him to use it against 3 experts at the same time. Therefore, he didn't attack Bai Changchun, but Jintai and Bai Qi to practice. It wouldn't be too late to attack after he had mastered it. He was certain that Bai Changchun was a proud and aloof person. If he went easy on him, Bai Changchun would definitely not join forces with the other 2 to deal with him. He only needed to buy some time to familiarize himself with him. The fierce battle in the sky did not stop. Loud noises shook the sky. The 2 flying dragons were like 2 snow-blue storms, wrapping around the 2 and attacking rapidly. Jintai suddenly transmitted his voice, Bai Qi. Since you are fast, why don't you find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack and break his sword-drawing style? By then, he will definitely die. Bai Qi glanced at Wang Qing, who was as still as a mountain, and saw that there were still 4 flying dragons circling around him. Bai Qi could not help but feel angry and annoyed. Just one of them would take a lot of effort, and now he had to deal with 5 at the same time. Wasn't he just looking for trouble? Immediately, he sneered and transmitted his voice back, "Help me lure 2 flying swords away from him first." What he meant was that they would each deal with 3 flying swords, and no one would suffer a loss. Jintai immediately shut his mouth. If he dared to run over, he was afraid that he would not just lure 2 flying swords away, but 4 flying swords. However, Jintai and Bai Qi weren't to be trifled with. It was a bit of a stretch for the 2 wyverns to try and stop them. By the time the 2 gradually let go of their attacks, the 2 wyverns had already been beaten back to their original forms. With Jintai's cunning, he immediately realized that something was wrong. In such a situation, Wang Qing still did not release the other 4 flying swords to win. It was not that he did not want to, but that he could not. Jintai immediately shouted, "Bai Changchun. He can't control 6 swords at the same time." Why don't you take the opportunity while we are holding him back to kill this thief? Now that things had come to this, Bai Changchun also faintly thought of this possibility. However, how could he do something like taking advantage of others' difficulties? He coldly snorted and said, "Shameless! How dare you point your fingers at this old man? You!" Jin Tai hatefully shut his mouth. He did not want to have another enemy now. At this time, the unmoving eyes of Wang Qing suddenly burst out with an even brighter splendor. He indifferently said, "Jin Tai, I will satisfy your request. I will let you have a taste of 6 swords." The blue robe waved his large sleeves and 2 fingers stabbed out with the driving sword technique. Roar! The 4 snow-blue flying dragons shone with blue light under the inky black clouds. They roared angrily and their huge bodies wriggled. With a loud bang, they split into 2 and shot towards Jin Tai and Bai Qi. Just one flying dragon was not easy to deal with for the 2 of them. If they continued to fight, they would simply be courting death. Jin Tai did not expect that he would make a wrong judgment. He angrily shouted, "Go!" With a wave of his staff that could shake the mountains and rivers, he pushed back the entangling flying dragons and teleported away. Bai Qi also quickly escaped. Although the 6 flying dragons were strong, they did not have the nimbleness of the flying swords. They were too much of a burden. Before they could catch up to the 2, they immediately returned and flew around Wang Qing. No one thought that this would be the result. Bai Qi and Jin Tai were actually chased away by Wang Qing. Such a subversive thing was hard for everyone to accept. The people of the Immortal Palace were terrified. They did not think that the Immortal Emperor would abandon them and run away. Nia Xiaoqian flashed to the side of Yu Qianzhou and Qingyang and anxiously said, "Quickly, follow mother. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter." Even Jin Tai ran away. "Where else can we go?" Qingyang self-deprecatingly sneered. Looking around, they found that the surrounding people were looking at them with evil intentions. Fortunately, Jin Tai and Bai Qi were still alive and did not see the final result. For the time being, no one dared to do anything to them. Most importantly, at this time, Wang Qing was completely focused on Bai Changchun. He did not care about the remaining people of the Immortal Palace. The sky was dark and the clouds were filled with lightning. "Let's go to the underworld. There are many experts there. It is the territory of the Emperor of the Underworld. We still have a chance to make a comeback." Nia Xiaoqian cautiously looked around and whispered. Qingyang frowned and closed the golden umbrella in her hand. She returned it to Yu Qianzhou and said, "You have the Immortal Palace's golden umbrella. Plus, you have enmity with the Heartless Palace. They won't let you go. Come with us to the underworld." Yu Qianzhou held the golden umbrella and looked at Bai Changchun. He slightly shook his head and said, "It is not the end yet. I still want to see how it will turn out. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave when the outcome is decided." Qingyang reminded. "It's fine if he doesn't want to leave." Nia Xiaoqian directly dragged Qingyang away. She couldn't care less about Yu Qianzhou's life at this time of great change. Pulling Qingyang to Ji Wu's side, Nia Xiaoqian clasped her hands together and said, "Immortal Empress, please come with us to the underworld to meet with the Immortal Emperor." Ji Wu finally had a chance to escape from Jin Tai's evil claws. How could she take the initiative to be trampled on? She coldly shouted, "He left me behind and ran away. Is there a need for me to stick to him?" Nia Xiaoqian paused. She naturally knew that Ji Wu didn't want to marry the Immortal Emperor. If there was a chance, Ji Wu would definitely not leave with her. At this moment, she couldn't use force. She could only say, "Immortal Empress, take care." She grabbed Qingyang and the 6 great commanders and quickly left. It was just as Lady Qingyang had said, when the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When the disciples of the Immortal Palace saw that their masters were either killed or fled, Those with higher cultivations who could keep up with them also ran away, while those with lower cultivations immediately scattered in all directions. The huge immortal palace collapsed in an instant. However, the strange thing was that the external affairs commander, Wuxia, didn't leave with Nye Xiaoqian's group. Instead, he flashed to the top right of Wang Qing and solemnly said, "Big brother. When the underworld found out that you were going to cut off all means of retreat during Jin Tai's wedding, they immediately made preparations in advance. When they received the news of Jin Tai's defeat, they immediately attacked the Dark North Royal Palace. Who would have thought that Bai Qi would also be here and would be defeated by you together with Jin Tai? This is good, we don't need to be afraid of their alliance. You alone can deal with both of them. Big brother. You should immediately go to the underworld and help father and auntie." As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. Wuxia actually called Wang Qing big brother. Who were their father and aunt? Why did they want to attack the Dark North Imperial Palace? Could it be that Wuxia and Wang Qing were brothers? Could it be that someone had been accumulating power to overthrow Jin Tai and Bai Qi? I know what to do. Get out of the way. Wang Qing shouted. He stared at the slightly surprised Bai Changchun and said word by word, "Brother Bai. Wang Qing will give you one last chance. Are you going to join my heartless palace or not?" The flying dragons flying around him became more and more ferocious. Wuxia frowned and quickly dodged to the side. He went to the side to appease his shocked subordinates and ordered them to go to the various mountains of the Paradise Wonderland to collect the wealth left by the Immortal Palace. Many people were envious when they heard this, but most of them came alone. Moreover, no one dared to compete with these two brothers for the wealth left by the Immortal Palace. This old man is not a person who fawns on the rich and powerful. Bai Changchun slowly floated into the air and flatly refused. This old man wants to see how powerful the seventh move of the sword drawing style is. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but sigh. They all felt that this Bai Changchun was a little tactless. Yu Qianzhou almost fainted when he heard this. This old man is really crazy. You can't even withstand the sixth move of the sword drawing style, and you want to withstand the seventh move? Didn't you see that Bai Qi and Jin Tai were scared away? Brother Bai. You are digging your own grave. Wang Qing said calmly. That's not necessarily true. Bai Changchun, who was in the air, said in a cadence, your sixth move is superior in terms of purity and 1. The explosive speed is so fast that I can't neutralize the power of that move with my current understanding. If you can use the sixth move now, this old man can only run away. As for the seventh move, it is indeed several times more powerful than the sixth move. Unfortunately, it is a little mixed. With this old man's understanding of power, I don't think it can do anything to me. Since I can't make you change your mind, what's the point of keeping you alive? The 6 flying snow-blue dragons around Wang Qing immediately roared in the sky, clap. Bai Changchun clapped his palms together in the air and closed his eyes. His lips moved, and his green robe fluttered in the wind. A sonorous sound flowed slowly between heaven and earth. Ignore the common people, ignore the ghosts and gods, and don't touch karma. Close your eyes, cover your ears, and dry your heart. Only seek the dragon crouching technique. Chapter 1096. The bleak tone in his voice revealed his persistent pursuit of endless bitter cultivation. The road was long and arduous, and he would continue to search for it. The mood in just 2 sentences made everyone's mind slightly stunned, and they looked back and sighed with emotion on the path of cultivation in this life. As the words flowed, the clouds in all directions moved, and the rolling dark clouds in the sky surged rapidly. Thunder rumbled one after another, and the momentum from all directions surged and condensed towards Bai Changchun, who was floating in the air. A mighty heaven and earth Dharma idol seemed to want to help him. Close your eyes, cover your ears, dry your heart, and only seek the dragon subduing technique. I want to see how Brother Bai will subdue Wang Qing's 6-dragon snow blue sword. Wang Qing snorted, waved the big sleeves of his blue robe, and stabbed towards Bai Changchun with 2 fingers. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. The 6 dragons roared loudly and shook the sky. Their huge snow-blue bodies, which were like rainbows, smashed through the air and shot towards Bai Changchun, who closed his eyes and put his palms together. The rolling and powerful airwaves immediately forced the onlookers to retreat again, not daring to get close. Bai Changchun's eyes suddenly opened, and his palms that were put together loosened. He waved the big sleeves of his green robe, and his whole body soared into the sky with a whoosh. He shot straight into the sky with a stream of light, and instantly rushed into the rolling dark clouds with bursts of thunder. At the moment when the dark clouds were smashed open, countless thunderbolts could be seen crisscrossing and shining like a net. The 6 dreamy flying dragons shining with snow-blue light all turned and chased after him. The 6 dragons surrounded and soared into the sky, and their momentum was astonishing. Bang! With a loud bang, the dark clouds in the sky were dyed into a large area of green light by the sudden burst of thunderbolts. Thousands of thunderbolts fell at the same time, and with a boom, they concentrated on the heads of the 6 flying dragons, causing the huge bodies of the 6 flying dragons to freeze. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They could feel the electric current spreading through the air, and the hairs on their bodies stood on end without being able to suppress it. Wang Qing's eyes suddenly narrowed. He could feel that the thunderbolt that descended this time was obviously much more powerful than the thunderbolt that struck the immortal palace earlier. He couldn't help but ask himself, could it be that this old thing has been hiding his strength all along? Yu Qianzhou, on the other hand, was left speechless. He realized that the old man was much stronger than him when it came to controlling thunder and lightning. He recalled the legend of the old man being able to capture thunder and lightning and use it as the heavenly sword. He had thought that it was just a flattering compliment from others who were intimidated by the old man's despotic power. But now, it seemed that the old man was a true expert in controlling thunder and lightning. Just as he was about to take a good look at the technique of controlling lightning, a few people suddenly appeared. At first glance, Ji Wu was supporting Immortal Crocodile and Lu Yanqing to his side. Yu Qianzhou couldn't help but glance at his own Immortal Emperor-style golden robe, then at Ji Wu's golden robe, and found that the two of them standing together were a little too eye-catching. After Ji Wu noticed his actions, she also looked back and forth between them. The expression on her face instantly froze, and some improper thoughts suddenly popped up in her mind. Is this really fate? Crocodile Xuejuan and Lu Yanqing also found that their clothes were too appropriate, and they couldn't help but look at each other. At this moment, a huge electric net was suddenly thrown out of the dark clouds. In an instant, the 6 wyverns that were slightly stiff in the air were all caught in one net. At the same time, they were firmly trapped in the electric net. The electric net was connected to thousands of electric currents hanging down from the dark clouds. Obviously, it was maintaining the strong binding force of the electric net on the wyverns. Everyone was shocked by the scene that appeared in the air. It was a little too spectacular. Could it be that the 7th move of Wang Qing's sword-drawing style was broken just like that? The 6 wyverns struggled violently in the huge electric net. Thousands of electric currents hanging down from the dark clouds became thicker, and the entire huge electric net gradually became thicker. It seemed that the net was trying to trap the 6 wyverns. I didn't expect your sword to already have a sword spirit in it. No wonder you can gather such a strong sword essence and show off the power of your sword-drawing style. When I use the power of thunder to destroy the sword spirit, let's see how powerful sect leader Wang Qing's sword-drawing style is. There was a sonorous snort in the air that overshadowed the thunder. The sect leader of Mythical Fire Palace, Huajun, suddenly looked at Wang Qing nervously. In the air, Bai Changchun broke through the dark clouds. His whole body was covered with shining green and white electric currents. Thousands of strands of thunder and lightning hung down from the dark clouds and connected to his back. In his hand, he held a huge sword that was tens of meters long made of powerful electric currents. He directly shot it towards the 6 wyverns trapped in the electric net below. It was as if he was going to slay the dragons with the heavenly sword. Everyone who looked up to the sky sucked in a breath of cold air. They were all shocked. This by Changchun was too exaggerated. He actually used the thunderbolt as a sword to slay the dragons. It turned out that fighting could be done this way. Naturally, Wang Qing would not sit back and watch Bai Changchun destroy the sword spirit in his sword. He waved his blue robe and quickly activated the newly mastered sword technique. The 6 trapped wyverns suddenly charged in all directions. The entire electric net expanded rapidly. Bai Changchun, who was pulling the thunder and lightning down, waved the long sword in his hand. In the air, thousands of thunderbolts struck the bodies of the 6 trapped wyverns. The 6 wyverns trembled and were immediately pulled back by the electric net. Bai Changchun, who had already rushed above the electric net, raised the heavenly sword in his hand like a god. He aimed at one of the wyverns and was about to kill it without mercy. Humph! Wang Qing's cold snort was filled with anger. He made a sword gesture in the big sleeve of his blue robe, and the 6 flying dragons immediately showed their original forms. The 6 snow-blue long swords burst out with flowing light, and they all slipped out of the electric net in an instant. They flashed and flew around Wang Qing rapidly. Dang dang, 6 crisp sounds, and the 6 swords combined into one. The snow-blue giant sword was once again inserted in front of Wang Qing. Wang Qing's aura suddenly converged and condensed. Bai Changchun, who was holding the heavenly sword, was slightly startled. He felt that this restrained aura was a bit similar to the 6th style, sword-drawing style. After pondering for a moment, he remembered that 6 hours had passed and immediately understood the reason. The thunder and lightning that filled the sky suddenly disappeared. Bai Changchun turned into a flowing light and suddenly disappeared into the dark clouds. A voice that was getting farther and farther away came from afar, Wang Qing. It's not that I can't defeat you, but I want to break your 6th style, sword-drawing style. Otherwise, it will leave a shackle on my path of cultivation that will be difficult to break. Let's part ways for now. We'll meet again in the future. As the voice faded away, the dark clouds that had gathered in the sky also gradually dissipated. The sun had already set, and at this moment, it was a night sky that was filled with stars. The surging murderous aura in the surroundings had also disappeared. Wang Qing did not refute Bai Changchun's words. Instead, he stared at the 6 dragon blue sword in front of him for a long time. He was fully aware that his cultivation was slightly higher than Bai Changchun's, but far lower than Jin Tai and Bai Qi's. The reason why he could scare off the 2 was that he relied on the sword-drawing style with the help of this divine sword. However, the level of one's cultivation was not the deciding factor in a fight. The key was whether one's methods could restrain one's opponent. Though his sword-drawing style could restrain Jin Tai and Bai Qi, with Bai Changchun's endless methods, it was possible that Bai Changchun could defeat him, as Bai Changchun said. The leaders of the various sects looked at Wang Qing speechlessly. Although it was a great battle and the entire celestial palace was destroyed, no one could tell who won and who lost. On the surface, it seemed that Wang Qing had won, but was he really the final winner? Bai Changchun had said before he fled that he could defeat Wang Qing. Based on that person's proud and aloof character, he would not boast about it. And the methods he used were indeed convincing. At the same time, Jin Tai and Bai Qi did not die. They just escaped. With the power of the Emperor of the Underworld in the Underworld and their high cultivation, it was entirely possible for them to make a comeback. Unless it was really as Wu Xiong had said before, that their father and aunt, whose authenticity was unknown, could conquer the Underworld royal palace. That meant that the Emperor of the Underworld, Bai Qi's power in the Underworld had been completely defeated. At that time, Bai Qi and Jin Tai would lose their great power, and there was Wang Qing here who could suppress the 2 of them. That would be the real time to determine the winner and loser. The sect masters were at a loss. If Wang Qing gave them orders, should they listen? If they didn't, Wang Qing would not be soft-hearted. Listen. What if Jin Tai regained his power in the celestial world? Yu Qianzhou, who was in the distance, was filled with resentment. He did not expect that a dark horse like Wang Qing would appear in the end. His relationship with the Heartless Palace was too good. If the Heartless Palace gained power, they would definitely not forget him. And that Wu Xiong would not treat him well. What made Yu Qianzhou the most speechless was still Bai Changchun. He had hoped that Bai Changchun would show off his invincible might and slaughter Wang Qing, but who would have thought that this old fellow had such a personality? Not only did he say that he had a way to defeat Wang Qing, but he actually threw up halfway through. He came and went as he pleased. The key was what he should do next. After some hesitation, a look of heartache flashed across Yu Qianzhou's face. His eyes inadvertently fell on Lu Yanqing. In the end, he could not bear to see her suffer with Ji Wu and the others. After all, she was someone he brought from the human world. He frowned and whispered, "Shouldn't you go back with me?" Lu Yanqing glanced at Ji Wu and Yi Xuejuan. She knew that they would not have a good time in the future. If she followed them, she would become a burden to them. So she silently nodded to Yu Qianzhou, agreeing to go back with him. Yu Qianzhou grabbed her hand. He wanted to find a place to teleport away while Wang Qing and the others were still not paying attention to him. Unexpectedly, Yi Xuejuan reached out and grabbed his other hand as soon as he grabbed Lu Yanqing. "Old monster! What are you doing? Stop fooling around. Let's run for our lives." Yu Qianzhou looked back at him in surprise. Yi Xuejuan held his hand tightly and did not let go. He said in a deep voice, "Do you think Ji Wu and I can escape? That's why. Let's take advantage of the fact that they haven't reacted yet and run as far as we can. Let go of her." Yu Qianzhou lowered his voice and waved his hand. Ji Wu also looked at Yi Xuejuan with some confusion. Why was he still pestering Yu Qianzhou at this time? Yi Xuejuan said with a ferocious face, "Yu Qianzhou. With Ji Wu's cultivation, she can't escape. What makes you think you can escape with Miss Lu? You scoundrel, what you said before about not being able to take us away must be a lie. I can let bygones be bygones, but now I only ask you one thing. Will you take us with you?" Chapter 1097. With my weak cultivation, I don't even have the qualifications to carry the Celestial Empress shoes. How would I be able to bring the two of you along? Yu Qianzhou bitterly smiled as if he was praising me. Ji Wu listened to Yi Xuejun's words and looked at Yu Qianzhou thoughtfully. However, hearing Yi Xuejun's words, she was also a prideful person. She had never done such a thing before. She immediately said with a cold face, "Brother Yi. We will find a way to leave by ourselves. There is no need to beg others." Yu Qianzhou nodded and shook his hand. Yi Xuejun tightened his grip and said, "Yu Qianzhou. If you don't take us with you, don't even think about leaving." Then, he looked at Wang Qing and the others threateningly, as if he would call for help at any time. "Old monster. You rely on women to carry you to the sky. How dare you threaten me? Are you tired of living?" Yu Qianzhou raised his eyebrows and looked at Wang Qing. He sneered, "Shout as much as you want. Let's see if I am unlucky or you two are unlucky. I promise you two will die before me." Things had come to this point. He was not afraid of this kind of threat. In the past, he was worried about the Immortal Palace. Now that the Immortal Emperor had run away and the Immortal Palace had collapsed, he had a grudge against the Heartless Palace. Even if he bowed his head and admitted his mistake, the Heartless Palace would not let him go. There was no need to pretend to be a coward. "Brother Yi. Let's go," Ji Wu said with a gloomy face. She did not want to be bullied by this villain. I am a useless person. It doesn't matter if I die, but sister, you. Yishuajun stared at Yu Qianzhou and said sternly, this person has ruined your reputation in the human world. When you were injured and unconscious, he took advantage of you. How can you let him escape easily after taking advantage of you? As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked at the same time. Lu Yanqing carefully peeked at Yu Qianzhou, as if she wanted to see if he was telling the truth. Ji Wu froze as if she had been struck by lightning. She looked at Yu Qianzhou with a trembling body and said, "What did you do to me?" Yu Qianzhou was speechless. He did not expect Yu Shuajun to bring up this matter. Yu Shuajun promised not to tell anyone about it. Although he knew that promises were the most unreliable thing, he always thought that Yu Shuajun would care about Ji Wu's reputation and would keep it to himself. Who knew? Yu Shuajun. In fact, Yu Shuajun did not want to do this, but the situation had reached this point. No matter how much Ji Wu valued her reputation, he could not be impulsive like her and watch her die. Now that there was no place for the two of them in the underworld and immortal underworld, their last hope could only be pinned on this elusive kid. In short, for Yishuajun, he owed Ji Wu too much. At this point, he had to save Ji Wu's life first. Based on his understanding of Yu Qianzhou after spending some time with him, this kid was basically evil. The only thing he could do to him was probably women. He did not bet wrong. The arrogant guy was pinched on the spot, and he gave in immediately. Yu Qianzhou looked at Ji Wu with a smile and said, "Don't listen to the old monster. I dare not do anything to you. Don't you know your own body? It's too dangerous here. It's not the time to discuss these things. Let's find a way to leave here first. Old monster, come with me under the cover of the night." Ji Wu was muttering that her body had never been penetrated by a man. Who would have thought that Yu Qianzhou's attitude had changed so drastically? Her heart sank. Shuajuan, on the other hand, was overjoyed. He grabbed Ji Wu, who was in a daze, and grabbed Yu Qianzhou with one hand. The few of them dashed towards the rocky valleys in the forest below. However, as soon as they moved, they immediately attracted the attention of others. Immediately, someone snorted coldly, "You guys still want to run? Yu Qianzhou. It's time for us to settle our scores." Wu Xiong led a few people to quickly chase after them. In the end, a group of people spread out a net and searched everywhere, but they did not find anyone. On the other side, Wang Qing had already put away the six-dragon snow-blue sword and rushed to the depths of the starry night sky. It seemed that he was going in the direction of the underworld. The leaders of the various sects looked at each other and knew that the real key battle to determine the outcome was probably still in the underworld. Then, they all dispersed and quickly rushed back to their respective sects to make arrangements. In the past, even at night, the Paradise Wonderland was shining with colorful neon lights. It was a day without night. Now, it was pitch black. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Under the stars, the dilapidated and decadent immortal palace glowed with a dark yellow luster. It was no longer glorious. Everywhere, Wuxiong subordinates searched the entire Paradise Wonderland for the treasures left behind by the immortal palace. No one knew if this place could return to its former glory. In the underground base of the hero army of the realm of gods, Yishuajun and Lu Yanqing looked around. They did not understand where Yu Qianzhou had brought them. Ji Wu's expression was a little dull. Yu Qianzhou quickly said a few words to Zhangpeng, who had rushed over. He turned around and spread his hands. "Okay. You are safe for the time being. The people from the immortal and underworld should not be able to come here in a short time. Remember not to run around. Otherwise, don't blame me if you encounter trouble. I knew you had a backup plan." Yishuajun clicked his tongue. His whole body seemed to relax. He looked around and asked, "What is this place?" "The realm of gods. The people in this area are all my people. Listen to their arrangements. I still have things to deal with now. Yu Qianzhou pointed to a few people and said to Zhangpeng, I'll leave them to you. Zhangpeng had just received the order when Ji Wu suddenly let out an incomparably sharp scream that pierced everyone's eardrums. She suddenly grabbed Yu Qianzhou's chest with lightning speed and said in a stern voice, What did you do to me? Zhangpeng looked at his master weakly. Lu Yanqing looked at Yu Qianzhou with a strange expression. Yi Shuijun looked a little embarrassed. Yu Qianzhou held her hand and smiled awkwardly. I really didn't do anything to you. I just hugged you to save you when you were unconscious. I really didn't do anything else. Let go. I have to hurry to save people, or else it will be too late. Slap. Ji Wu suddenly slapped Yu Qianzhou. The slap was extremely loud, and everyone present was stunned. Ji Wu grabbed him crazily and hissed, I don't believe it. Slap. Slap. Yu Qianzhou was angry. He immediately retaliated with 2 slaps. Ji Wu staggered and covered her face. Yu Qianzhou pointed at her and said angrily, Bitch. You are now a chicken in distress. Do you think you are the golden phoenix of the immortal palace? I'll tell you the truth. I touched your ass. No matter where on your body, I touched you. I have already slept with you. Even if you take off your clothes, you are only 2 pieces of meat. Do you think you are a treasure? If it weren't for the fact that I have slept with you, you would still be trapped in the heaven and earth universe formation waiting to die. Bastard! How dare you slap me in the face, bitch! Yu Qianzhou spouted a series of vicious words. He had no time to recall what happened in the past with her. He left the dumbfounded people and disappeared. In the hallucinatory Immortal City's World Chamber of Commerce, Yu Qianzhou directly appeared in the hall on the first floor. He waved to the people in the hall with a sullen face and said, Everyone, gather in the big conference room immediately. Hurry, hurry, hurry. After saying, hurry, 3 times, he turned into a stream of light and flew up the stairs. He shouted at everyone to gather quickly. Everyone hurriedly packed up the things that could be taken away. Before Yu Qianzhou went to the Immortal Palace, he had specially gathered everyone to make arrangements. If there was an accident, they would move together. It could be said that they had long been prepared. Now that he was in such a hurry, it was obvious that an accident had really happened. The atmosphere in the building immediately became tense. On the 22nd floor, Yu Qianzhou quickly knocked on the doors of the women and asked everyone to quickly gather in the big conference room downstairs. The women were first surprised by his gorgeous clothes, then they quickly packed up the things that could be taken away. Wei Chuanxiu quickly came over and was also stunned when she saw the golden robe on him. She then asked, What happened? Heartless Palace's sect master Wang Qing went crazy and defeated Jin Tai and Bai Qi. The immortal world is about to change. We must leave immediately. What? Wang Qing defeated Jin Tai and Bai Qi. Wei Chuanxiu was shocked and said, When did Wang Qing become so powerful? How is Deming Luan? Deming Luan is fine. He has already escaped to the netherworld with Jin Tai and Bai Qi. Quickly call Senior Yun to gather in the big conference room downstairs. As Yu Qianzhou spoke, he had already rushed to the door of the room where Bai Suzhen was cultivating. He directly pushed open the door, only to see Bai Suzhen who was sitting cross-legged slowly opening her beautiful eyes. Seeing him, she also couldn't help but look at the golden robe on his body. A faint smile appeared on her face and she said, Why are you dressed like this? Yu Qianzhou's anxious footsteps immediately slowed down. He lightly walked in front of her and stretched out his hand, There's some trouble. It's not good to stay here anymore. We can talk about the details later. I will bring you to another place to continue cultivating. Bai Suzhen nodded her head. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't ask anything unnecessary. She believed that he would definitely tell her what he should tell her. She stretched out her hand and stood up. The two of them held hands and walked out. Coincidentally, they bumped into Wei Chuanxiu and Yun Peng, who were coming down from the rooftop. Yu Qianqiu said, "Let's go." The four of them quickly rushed downstairs. In the big conference room, everyone had already arrived before the four of them arrived. However, this was the first time everyone had seen Bai Suzhen. Seeing the luxuriously dressed Yu Qianqiu holding hands with her in public, the others were a little curious, while the expressions of the girls were a little unnatural. Now was not the time to explain too much. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and everyone disappeared. They appeared in the underground space of the Netherworld Palace in Utopia, which was a copy of the East Holy Land. Then, their vision blurred, and the scene changed again. They had already arrived at the underground base of the Divine Ruin Realm. This was the first time Wei Chuanxiu and Yun Peng had experienced such an incredible teleportation, and they couldn't help but look at each other. However, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at Lu Yanqing, who was not far away, and said, "Tell everyone about the great changes that have happened in the Immortal Palace. Otherwise, everyone will be confused." Chapter 1098. The lords of the various countries and Lu Yanqing were all old acquaintances, so they did not stand on ceremony. They surrounded her and asked what was going on, but Lu Yanqing was really not an expert at telling stories. She had told such a good topic like a piece of wood, but such a shocking change still caused everyone to boo again and again. Especially after hearing about Bai Changchun's feat, they were excited and emotional. There was also some pride in it. They all lamented that the number one expert who once deterred the world was still as powerful as before in the immortal world. Back then, he was looking down on the world, but now, he was looking down on the three realms. The distance between them and Bai Changchun had not shortened. Instead, it was getting further apart. Among the crowd, the most melancholy was Nongzhu. Nongzhu's nostalgic expression was a little lost. Although she was Bai Changchun's good friend, she really could not catch up with Bai Changchun anymore. Could they still sit and chat like they used to on Obedient Island? Nongzhu smiled bitterly and shook her head. Yun Peng and Wei Chuanxiu, along with several women, were also listening to Lu Yanqing's story. Yu Qianqiu and Zhang Peng were constantly discussing the arrangements for these people, especially Bai Suzhen's cultivation place. Ji Wu, who almost overturned the entire underground base after Yu Qianqiu left, was finally persuaded by Yi Xuejuan. After learning the truth from Yi Xuejuan, and remembering that she was still a virgin, she believed Yu Qianqiu's words were said out of anger. However, after learning that Yu Qianqiu had spanked her, she gritted her teeth in shame and annoyance, but she did not lose her temper in public. However, when others learned that the woman in the golden phoenix robe was the wife left behind by immortal Emperor Jin Tai when he escaped, and looked at Yu Qianqiu's dragon robe, everyone felt that Yu Qianqiu had abducted Jin Tai's wife. After the discussion was over, Yu Qianqiu looked around and suddenly realized that something was missing. He walked to the side of the women and asked, "Where is that girl, Lu?" The women looked at Wei Chuanxiu and said, "Her grandfather took her away." "So what if he's taken away? Why are you looking at him?" Yu Qianqiu stroked his chin and muttered to himself. Zi, who had changed to a new environment and had something to play with, excitedly came over and snitched on Yu Qianqiu. "Luer's grandfather knows Bat King Wei. Bat King Wei seems to be quite afraid of Luer's grandfather. He doesn't even dare to raise his head after being scolded." On the other side, Wei Chuanxiu's face immediately darkened. "What a talkative girl, what are you talking about?" Zi stuck out her bright red tongue and shut up. Was there such a thing? Yu Qianqiu walked to Wei Chuanxiu's side with an annoyed expression and asked suspiciously, "Bat King Wei, what is going on?" Wei Chuanxiu shook her head at first and didn't want to say anything, but when she saw Bai Suzhen and Yun Peng looking at her curiously, she immediately said with a wry smile, "It's not good to let too many people know about this. Just the four of us, let's find a quiet place to talk slowly. No problem. Follow me. Yu Qianqiu led the few of them into the depths of the underground base's passageways. They turned left and right and randomly found a secluded room. After they entered, they even laid down a soundproof barrier. In the room, Wei Chuanqiu's gaze swept across the few of them. After a moment of hesitation, she slowly said, "Actually, Luer's grandfather is the elder who told me about Zheng, Yi, and Ming's past." "It's him? That old man who sold snacks in the hallucinatory immortal city was actually the mysterious elder you spoke of?" Yu Qianqiu exclaimed in surprise and exchanged a glance with Yunpeng. Bai Suzhen was a little confused, but she liked peace and wasn't the kind of woman who would get to the bottom of things. He sold snacks in the hallucinatory immortal city? Wei Chuanqiu was startled and immediately said with some remorse and self-blame, "That's right. He should have changed his appearance and came out to travel. When he barged into the World Commerce Association to find Luer, I didn't recognize him. It was only when he warned me to warn you not to approach Luer in the future that I recognized him. So he had long been to the hallucinatory immortal city, but I didn't pay him a visit. It's really a sin. Warn me. F***ck. It was clearly his granddaughter who was pestering me, okay?" Yu Qianqiu sneered a few times. Then, he changed the topic and said, "I say, Bat King Wei, just who is this old man? I see that you seem to take him seriously. Could he be very powerful? Even the demon god has to respectfully call him senior when he sees him. Do you think he's powerful or not?" Bat King Wei's gaze turned to Bai Suzhen and said with a solemn expression, "The reason why Suzhen and I could have the opportunity to cultivate the 10,000 Demon Heart Sutra that Tai Shuzheng left behind was because we met him by chance. He felt that we were fated, so he pointed out Tai Shuzheng's secluded cultivation place to me. That was how I found the 10,000 Demon Heart Sutra that Tai Shuzheng left behind." 10,000 Demon Heart Sutra? Yunpeng was startled, his pair of white eyebrows wrinkled as he said, "In that case, you went into hiding to cultivate because you obtained the 10,000 Demon Heart Sutra?" His tone seemed to be a little unhappy. He. Don't misunderstand, I didn't mean to hide it from you. It's just that Senior Mu told me not to let others know about the 10,000 Demon Heart Sutra. I also know that this thing is very important, so naturally. Wei Chuanqiu gritted his teeth and pointed at Yu Qianqiu and said, "If I didn't meet this bastard, I wouldn't have broken my promise to Senior Mu." Yu Qianqiu didn't care about his words. Instead, he took a deep breath and said, "A person that even the demon god has to respect, doesn't that mean his cultivation is even higher than the demon gods? I didn't think that there was such a powerful person in the immortal world. Why haven't I heard of him before? I wonder where I can find him. If I have the chance, I must pay a visit to such a person." Wei Chuanqiu muttered, "It's not certain whether his cultivation is higher than the demon gods, but in terms of qualifications and experience, he is definitely stronger than the demon god. He has always stood aloof from worldly affairs, so it's not strange that you haven't heard of him. In fact, there aren't many people who know of his existence. As for you wanting to pay a visit to him, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Back then, I accidentally entered his territory and saw him. Later, when I wanted to go back to the place I entered to pay a visit to him, I found that I couldn't find the way. Maybe I remembered the wrong place. According to what you said, it's very likely that the place he lives in is another world. You accidentally entered the passageway, and then the passageway closed. Naturally, you can't find the way back in." With his current experience, Yu Qianqiu came to a very certain conclusion. He then asked, "Where was the place you first entered? The passageway in that place should open again. If there's a chance, I must go take a look." Wei Chuanqiu recalled and said hesitantly, "I'm not sure whether it's another world or not, because when I entered, I didn't feel the transition of the passageway between the two worlds. Back then, I went to the ancient forest of the Wood Fairy province to look for something. In the end, I had a conflict with the tree spirits in the forest. At that time, I couldn't fight against the tree spirits and was chased everywhere. I accidentally entered another world and met Senior Mu by chance. That place is called Woodkiller Sea. There are all kinds of vibrant plants everywhere. It's really a relaxing place. It's the most suitable place to live in seclusion. The Wood Fairy Province, one of the 13 great immortal provinces, and that ancient forest. Yu Qianqiu pondered and nodded slightly. He had heard of it before. It seemed that the Immortal Palace had always been in control of that area. Normally, they wouldn't let anyone disturb them. They said that they didn't invade the tree spirits there. Some people had long felt that it wasn't Jin Tai's style. However, most of the sects didn't have any interest in that place, so no one paid too much attention. Now, it seemed that there was something hidden there. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but wonder if Jin Tai also knew that mysterious Senior Mu. Woodkiller Sea? Yu Qianqiu muttered softly, Bat King Wei, do you think that Senior Mu could be a tree spirit that has cultivated for many years? Otherwise, why would he live in a place with Mu in his name? And that environment, I'm afraid it's not a coincidence. Wei Chuanxiu immediately said disdainfully, according to what you said, that Jin Tai's surname is Jin, and he lives in a big golden palace. Doesn't that make him a gold demon? Senior Mu is definitely not a plant spirit or something like that. He seems to have cultivated some kind of wood elemental magic art. Jin Tai. Yu Qianqiu cried out in surprise. He was just wondering if Jin Tai was acquainted with Senior Mu when Wei Chuanxiu mentioned Jin Tai. After hearing Wei Chuanxiu's words, he immediately thought of something between the two. After combining the cause and effect, his mind spun a few times, and he said with some bewilderment, could it be that Senior Mu is a wood spirit? Wood spirit? What do you mean? Wei Chuanxiu asked in surprise. Yunpeng and Bai Suzhen also looked at him in confusion. I can't explain it clearly. I'm just guessing. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, and his eyes flickered. They waited for a while, but he still didn't come back to his senses. Yunpeng suddenly interrupted and asked, since someone from the Netherworld dares to attack the Dark Imperial Palace, they must have something to rely on. Will the Great Bright will be in danger if it follows Jin Tai and Bai Qi to the Netherworld? Yu Qianqiu raised his head slightly. This was really hard to say. It was probably going to be quite dangerous. If an expert like Jin Tai Bai Qi were to fight, it would be very difficult for someone with the cultivation of the Great Bright Will to block it. Wei Chuanxiu was also surprised when he heard this. He stared at Yu Qianqiu and said anxiously, why is the Great Bright Will still following Jin Tai? Jin Tai is not a good person. From the incident at the Immortal Palace, it can be seen that he doesn't treat his subordinates as human beings. He can send his subordinates to their deaths at any time. No, we can't let him follow Jin Tai anymore. Yu Qianqiu. Send the two of us out now. We're going to the Netherworld to find him. Yunpeng also made a heavy N sound, expressing his agreement. Hearing the two of them say this, Yu Qianqiu blamed himself in his heart. Why didn't he notice the Great Bright Wheel's head at that time? Otherwise, he could have secretly sent a voice transmission to ask him to stay and follow him. He reckoned that the Great Bright Wheel saw that the situation wasn't clear yet and wanted to follow Jin Tai to take a look. However, once the Great Bright Will realized that the situation wasn't right, it would mean that Jin Tai and Bai Qi's forces had completely collapsed. At that time, it would be hard to say if the Great Bright Will could leave Jin Tai and the others. Even if he could leave, as one of Jin Tai's 6 great commanders, the people from the Heartless Palace would definitely not let him go. At that time, the Immortal Realm and the Netherworld would definitely send people to hunt down the Great Bright Wheel. Thinking about how the Great Bright Wheel had helped him many times, he couldn't ignore this friendship. Otherwise, he would lose his foundation as a human. He couldn't lose this little bit of conscience. Yu Qianqiu's face turned serious and said, leave this matter to me. Even if he overturns the netherworld and turns it into a pot of porridge, Yu Qianchou, will definitely find a way to bring him back. Chapter 1099. You alone. Yunpeng was a little hesitant. It was not that he did not believe in Yu Qianchou's determination, but Yu Qianchou's cultivation was too worrying. Could he bring the great Ming Will back in such a chaotic situation? Wei Chuanxiu's words were much more direct. She said bluntly, "Can you do it with your little cultivation? Why don't you bring the two of us along? I'll go check out the situation first. If I need the two of you, I'll immediately call for your help." That's it. Yu Qianchou waved his hand and said, "Zhangpeng is my disciple, a trustworthy person. He is in charge here. If there is anything you need, you can ask him for help. I will go to the underworld now." Before the two of them could say anything, he had already disappeared from where he stood. Wei Chuanxiu couldn't hear him even if he wanted to stomp his feet and curse. Yu Qianchou appeared in the valley at the foot of the hallucinatory Immortal City's World Chamber of Commerce. There was no lack of broken rocks and broken beams in the surroundings. There were even trees that had been smashed to the side. Lifting his head to look at the mountain peak, he saw that the World Commerce Association, which had been in the limelight for a period of time in the illusory Immortal City, had already collapsed. At this moment, there was still a raging fire burning on the mountain peak. All that was left was a pile of rubble. The World Commerce Association had been destroyed. Who did it? Although Yu Qianchou was filled with anger, there was no need to ask who did it. Who else could it be other than the Heartless Palace? This was to be expected. Even then, his expression was still slightly unsightly because the foundation he'd established in the immortal dimension with great difficulty had been destroyed just like that. The high spirits he'd once possessed when he occupied this mountain had completely vanished, so his mood naturally wasn't good. There was a gurgling stream by his feet, and there was a slightly deformed silver ball lying in the stream. This was also the reason why he had teleported here instead of appearing in the World Chamber of Commerce's room. Yu Qianchou casually waved his hand, and the silver orb landed in his hand. He looked at it for a moment, then clenched it tightly in his palm. There were still sounds of intense fighting in the distance. He threw the deformed silver orb back into the stream, and disappeared. When he appeared here again, he had already changed his clothes and put on Niu Yud's mask. He flashed and flew towards the direction of the battle. In the direction of the Chamber of Commerce Alliance, there were many people floating in the air to watch the show. Yu Qianchou blended into the crowd and saw that the buildings of the Chamber of Commerce Alliance had already collapsed. A group of people were surrounding some golden-robed men, and the one leading them was someone from Heartless Palace. Fang Yi, the elder from Heartless Palace whom he had met before, was rampaging through the crowd and slaughtering. The sounds of battle were extremely intense. "My friend. What's going on?" Yu Qianchou cupped his hands and asked the person beside him. The person being questioned had a relatively low cultivation base, an early-stage minor immortal. He turned around to look at Yu Qianchou. Seeing that he couldn't see through his cultivation, his expression immediately became much more modest. He moved closer and pointed below, sending a voice transmission. "You should have just arrived at the illusory Immortal City and haven't received the news yet. I heard that the sect master of Heartless Palace, Wang Qing, personally came out and slaughtered everyone during Immortal Emperor Jin Tai's wedding celebration. Even the Immortal Emperor and Emperor of the Underworld were defeated by him. The two Supremes of Immortal and Underworld have already fled, and the entire Immortal Palace has collapsed." See, Fang Yi, the consecrator of Heartless Palace immediately gathered some sects to encircle and annihilate the remnants of the Immortal Palace. It's a pity that even we know the news, the people that the Immortal Palace sent to the Chamber of Commerce Alliance haven't received any news and are still fighting desperately here. How sad. Yu Qianchou nodded and didn't say anything more. He turned around and looked at the mountain that was still emitting thick smoke. That person followed his gaze and raised his chin. "That is the once glorious World Chamber of Commerce. Its sect master, Yu Qianqiu, had already formed a feud with Heartless Palace. I heard that this time, he even fawned on immortal Emperor Jin Tai's wedding celebration. Great! They were the first ones that Heartless Palace took care of. However, the people of World Chamber of Commerce are really well informed. When the people of Heartless Palace arrived, the place was already empty. Everyone ran away in advance. TSK. Running away without anyone noticing, it's really admirable. Yu Qianqiu looked at this chattering guy and didn't wait for him to finish. He already flew towards the Heartless Palace's branch in a flash. That person was startled and smacked his lips as if he hadn't had enough. Some of the disciples guarding the door of the Heartless Palace's branch suddenly saw a person land and immediately blocked the incoming person with vigilance. They shouted, "Who is it?" Yu Qianqiu glanced at these people and said indifferently, "I'm here to see if there's anything to buy." Those disciples looked at each other suspiciously. Right now, everyone couldn't wait to watch the show, and suddenly, a person suddenly came to buy something. It was a bit abrupt. One of them pushed his palm up and said, "Sorry. Heartless Palace is not doing any business today. That's a pity. Absorbing Star's great skill." Yu Qianqiu let out a cold shout and swung his palm to meet the crowd. More than a dozen white mists were sucked into his sleeves, and over 100 purple flame flying swords immediately appeared around him. A pile of dried corpses scattered on the ground. Yu Qianqiu had already charged into the Heartless Palace's branch with the flying swords. Many people instantly dashed out and shouted angrily, "Who is it?" However, a group of densely packed purple flying swords rushed in and started a massacre. Shocked and angry shouts rang out, and there was no lack of miserable cries, "Boom!" A large area of the Heartless Palace's branch collapsed. Then, purple flames shot up into the sky and immediately shocked the people in the distance. "Someone is attacking the Heartless Palace's branch, that purple flame is." For a moment, there was an uproar. Heartless Palace's consecrator, Fang Yi, left the battle and flashed into the sky. He flew towards the branch with a whoosh. As soon as he arrived, he saw that the purple flame suddenly disappeared. The entire Heartless Palace's branch in front of him had turned into ashes. In Utopia, Yu Qianqiu, who had vented the anger in his heart, finally felt better. He floated in the air and closed his eyes to search for the silver ball that he had thrown in the netherworld, preparing to go to the netherworld. Unexpectedly, he discovered dozens of silver balls rapidly moving towards the passageway between the immortal realm and the netherworld. "Master is still in the immortal realm?" Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes and was stunned. Then, he came to a realization. There was a long distance between the paradise immortal realm and the netherworld. Although the old man's cultivation was high, it was impossible for him to arrive in a flash. Although Yu Qianqiu had returned to settle many things, he did not spend too much time in Utopia. He then closed his eyes and sensed again. He discovered that the old man was almost at the passageway between the immortal realm and the netherworld. He happened to be near the entrance of the immortal realm and the netherworld. He had left a silver ball to locate him, so he immediately disappeared in the air to intercept him. However, Bai Changchun's flying speed was too fast. The moment Yu Qianqiu appeared in the valley outside the entrance, he saw a stream of light rushing into the entrance. He immediately shouted, "Master," but there was no response. He immediately flew towards the entrance, but he realized that none of the guards at the entrance had disappeared. They had either been killed or had escaped. However, this was not something he needed to worry about. When he arrived in front of the spinning black light in the cave, he realized that Bai Changchun was long gone. He shook his head and smiled bitterly before flashing into the black light. Once he stepped into the netherworld, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. There were broken limbs and corpses everywhere. There were huge pits everywhere, and the ancient inscription tablet was nowhere to be seen. It was obvious that a huge battle had happened here. "I wonder where the Netherworld Royal Palace is?" Yu Qianqiu touched his chin and muttered for a while. He then wandered around, but found that there was no living person around. It was difficult to find someone to ask for directions. Just as he flashed back to the entrance of the passageway, there was a soft sound in the cave. Yu Qianqiu suddenly looked back and saw a group of people jumping out of the spinning black light. He was shocked when he saw them. They were none other than the 7 people who escaped from the immortal palace led by Nie Shaoqian. The great Ming Luan was also among them. Why did they only? Yu Qianqiu secretly scolded himself for being stupid. Although these 7 people had escaped in front of the old man, they were not necessarily faster than the old man in terms of speed, so it was not surprising that they were overtaken by the old man. When Nie Shaoqian and the others came out, they were also shocked by the scene in front of them. There were corpses everywhere, but there was only one living person standing in front of them. Moreover, they could not see through his cultivation, which made them vigilant. They thought that Yu Qianqiu had killed so many people alone. Nie Shaoqian asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and ignored her. Instead, he cupped his fists to the great Ming Luan and said, "May I ask if you are the great Ming Luan?" When they heard this, they all looked at the great Ming Luan. The great Ming Luan was confused and cupped his fists to return the greeting, "Yes, I am. What can I do for you?" "I'm looking for you." Yu Qianqiu laughed and said, "I am Wei Chuanqiu's good friend, Niu Yud. Wei Chuanqiu heard about the shocking change in the immortal palace, and you came here. He was afraid that you would be lost, so he sent me a message to come find you. I didn't expect to meet you here." They looked at each other. The great Ming Luan's eyes flickered and said, "Niu Yud? Why have I never heard Wei Chuanqiu mention you?" He was not a fool. He would believe whatever others said, not to mention that they were in a critical period. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He could only secretly transmit his voice, "It's me. Yu Qianqiu. I've disguised myself. Yunpeng and Wei Chuanqiu asked me to find you." On the surface, he smiled and pointed at the spinning black light. "Can we talk in private?" The great Ming Luan was stunned. He stared suspiciously at Yu Qianqiu's face and carefully examined it. This voice was really Yu Qianqiu's voice. However, with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, how could he have arrived here before him? Seeing that the great Ming Luan did not believe him, Yu Qianqiu secretly transmitted his voice again. Wei Chuanqiu, Yunpeng, Bai Suzhen, Mahjong, and the Chamber of Commerce Alliance executive token that you gave me when I came to the Netherworld. Damn it, you still don't believe me? You're a stray dog now. What's the point of lying to you? Saying that, Wei Chuanqiu and Yunpeng was not convincing to the great Ming Luan, but the latter 3 were different. Not everyone knew about them. The great Ming Luan immediately cupped his hands at Nie Shaoqian and said, "Please wait for a moment, head chief." Then, he gestured at Yu Qianqiu to invite him in, and with some wariness, he stepped into the swirling black light with Yu Qianqiu. Chapter 1100. Who exactly are you? As soon as he returned to the celestial realm, De Ming Luan flashed to the side and asked. He still did not believe that the person in front of him was Yu Qianqiu, but he felt that this person was related to Yu Qianqiu and the others. Yu Qianqiu wanted to use his divine sense to take De Ming Luan away, but De Ming Luan guarded against him as if he was a thief. De Ming Luan's divine sense forced him away and quickly dodged. Yu Qianqiu looked around speechlessly. After confirming that there was no one around, he quickly removed the disguise on his face. "You?" De Ming Luan looked at him in disbelief. He did not expect that it was really Yu Qianqiu. "What about you? Hurry up and come with me." Yu Qianqiu's divine sense enveloped him, and he directly teleported to the underground palace in Utopia. Then, he teleported to the underground base in the divine ruin realm. De Ming Luan was dumbfounded as he looked at the changing scenery around him. He shook his head as if he was dreaming. He was so shocked that he could not speak for a long time. Coincidentally, Yunnan Tian, who was leisurely observing the structure of the base, flashed past. Yu Qianqiu quickly waved his hand and said, "Where did Wei Chuanxiu and Yunpeng go?" Yunnan Tian was stunned. He looked at De Mingluan in surprise, then pointed to the depths of the underground tunnel and replied, "They seem to be living in the innermost part. I don't know which room they are in exactly. Let's go." Yu Qianqiu called out. De Mingluan followed him doubtfully. The two of them turned left and right in the base and almost lost their way. They had no choice but to call Zhang Peng. Under Zhang Peng's lead, the two of them finally arrived at an underground cave. The so-called cave was an underground karst cave. An underground river flowed in the middle. There were many naturally formed caves on the other side of the river, causing the cave to have a universe inside. It was indeed a good place for meditation. "Old monster. I've already brought him back for you." Yu Qianqiu stood on the other side of the river and roared. His voice reverberated throughout the cave. Two people immediately appeared from the two caves on the opposite side. They were Yunpeng and Wei Chuanxiu. The two of them looked at the great bright wheel up and down. They heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Yu Qianqiu was fine. They looked at Yu Qianqiu meaningfully, but did not say a word of thanks. When De Mingluan saw the two of them, he was a little stunned. "You're both here? What is this place?" Wei Chuanxiu pouted at Yu Qianqiu and said, "This kid said he's in the Divine Ruin Realm." Divine Ruin Realm? De Mingluan looked at the few people with a head full of fog and said, "What the hell is going on? How can you guys enter the Divine Ruin Realm? Also, why did you bring me here? Nia Xiaoqian and the others are still waiting for me." He looked left and right, thinking that he didn't know how to leave, so he said angrily, "Hurry up and send me back. It's the way I brought you in." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, "Don't think too much about the rest. It's too dangerous for you to go back now. I can't let you go back and risk your life with them. You don't know this, but not long after you left, Wuxia exposed his hidden identity. It turns out that he's in cahoots with Wang Qing. They have a group of people in the underworld who are attacking the Dark Imperial Palace. Since they dare to rebel in the underworld, they must have something to rely on. If you follow Nia Xiaoqian and the others now, aren't you courting death? Attacking the Dark Imperial Palace? Wu Xiong and Wang Qing are in cahoots?" De Mingluan was shocked. "I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I heard Wu Xiong call Wang Qing Big Brother." Yu Qianqiu immediately gave a rough account of what happened at that time. After listening, Wei Chuanxiu nodded in agreement and said, "De Mingluan, this kid is right. You can't follow Nia Xiaoqian and the others anymore. Let's lie low in the Divine Ruin Realm for now. If it's appropriate, it won't be too late for us to go out." Wu Xiong called Wang Qing Big Brother. Who are their father and aunt? How dare they attack the Dark Imperial Palace? De Mingluan muttered to himself. After pondering for a long time, he suddenly raised his head and stared at Yu Qianqiu and said, "Yu Qianqiu, tell me honestly, are you sure we can stay safe and sound in the Divine Ruin Realm? As far as I know, the Divine Ruin Realm is also a place with an owner." Yu Qianqiu was startled. He shook his head and said, "I really can't guarantee that. I'm not familiar with the situation in the Divine Ruin Realm, but there shouldn't be any danger in the short term where we are temporarily staying. Since that's the case, I still have to go out and meet up with Nia Xiaoqian and the others." De Mingluan frowned and said, "People who don't think far ahead will have immediate worries. You can't treat everything with hope, but you have to fight for it. Currently, Jin Tai and Bai Qi haven't completely failed. No one knows what the final outcome will be. If Jin Tai makes a comeback, then my position in the Immortal Palace will become more and more stable. At that time, anyone in the immortal world who wants to touch you will have to think twice. If Jin Tai and Bai Qi completely fail, it won't be too late for me to return." In short, now is not the time to give up so easily. Even if you're not in the immortal palace, we can still live well. We don't need you to take care of us. Wei Chuanxiu said snappily. Deming Luan smiled faintly and said, I didn't say how to take care of you. Just treat it as leaving a way out for you to play a role at a critical moment. Saying that, he turned to look at Yu Qianzhou and said, Yu Qianzhou. Quickly send me out. If I take too long, it will arouse their suspicions. Wei Chuanxiu still wanted to say something, but Yun Peng pulled him back and shook his head slightly, indicating that there was no point in arguing. Yu Qianzhou looked at both sides and saw that it was useless to continue persuading them. He immediately sighed and said, Then I'll go with you. With me by your side, if there's any danger, I can bring you back at any time. Saying that, he returned to Niu Yud's appearance. Doing this was tantamount to taking the same risk as the Deming Luan, but relatively speaking, if he could bring the Deming Luan back at any time, then the Deming Luan's safety would be greatly increased. Hearing this, Yun Peng and Wei Chuanxiu looked at Yu Qianzhou in unison. Their hearts were filled with gratitude, but they didn't show it. The Deming Luan still wanted to refuse, but Yu Qianzhou had already pulled him away and disappeared into the cave. When the two of them returned to the netherworld through the passageway between the two worlds, they found that there was no one outside. They didn't know where Nia Shaoqian and the others had gone. While they were looking at each other, Nia Shaoqian and the others flashed out from hiding on both sides, showing how careful these people were. Deming Luan. Why were you gone for so long? Nia Shaoqian's eyes flashed as she focused on Yu Qianzhou, who was standing next to the Deming Luan. Next to her, Qingniang looked at Yu Qianzhou with a slightly suspicious gaze. Chief Steward, please don't be so suspicious. This subordinate has received some bad news and is waiting for Chief Steward to make a decision. The Deming Luan quickly told them about Wu Xiong's betrayal and the attack on the Netherworld Royal Palace. After hearing this, everyone revealed a shocked expression. Nia Shaoqian coldly snorted and said, I was wondering why Wu Xiong didn't escape with us. So he was with them. No wonder the immortal emperor felt that something was wrong with him and asked me to secretly send people to investigate him. It's a pity that he took the initiative. Otherwise, he would be begging for death. What do we do now? Do we still rush to the Netherworld Royal Palace? The Deming Luan asked. Then what do you think we should do? Nia Shaoqian slightly sighed and said, even if the Netherworld Royal Palace is really attacked, we still have to find a way to meet up with the immortal emperor. If we follow the immortal emperor, we might have another way out. Otherwise, with just the few of us, I'm afraid we won't be able to survive. Everyone was silent. Who would have thought that the sky would change so suddenly? Nia Shaoqian waved her hand and said, let's go to the Netherworld Royal Palace. Along the way, we'll act according to the situation. Under the dark blue sky, the sounds of battle could be heard. Around the main peak of the Minghuang Mountain, which was surrounded by 5 peaks, there were as many people as ants fighting each other. Violent explosions could be heard continuously. Flashes of light flew everywhere, and blood and flesh flew everywhere. Screams of pain could be heard continuously. Amidst the rolling dark clouds in the sky, huge green snakes that were as thick as dragons opened their bloody mouths and launched sneak attacks on people who flew by at lightning speed, biting them to death and swallowing them into their stomachs. On the ground, there were all kinds of ferocious monsters colliding with each other. Some had huge bodies, some had sharp fangs, and some had thick scales. They fought and tore at each other, not stopping until one of them was dead. Around the Minghuang Mountain, there were chaotic battles and rivers of blood. The pungent smell of blood stimulated the ferocious monsters, causing them to roar loudly and become more and more restless. Countless black-armored soldiers and all kinds of ferocious-looking monsters attacked the Minghuang Mountain from all directions. The Minghuang Mountain was also filled with people who were defending against the enemies. Soldiers in silver, purple, blue, and yellow armors were mixed together in battle formations. It looked messy, but in fact, it was orderly. The main peak of Minghuang Mountain was protected by a dazzling white light shield. For men in silver, purple, blue, and yellow armors stood on top of the shield, back to back, watching the battle around them. These 4 people were the 4 underworld generals under the command of the Emperor of the Underworld, Bai Qi. They were the silver-armored Thousand Soldiers, the purple-armored Proud Soldiers, the blue-armored Heavenly Soldiers, and the yellow-armored Victorious Soldiers. Seeing the rebel army launching an even more ferocious attack, the blue-armored Heavenly Soldier waved his hand and shouted angrily, "Fire the soul-slaying bows." The blue-armored soldiers, who were mixed with the other 3 armies, pulled their bowstrings together. In an instant, hundreds of thousands of arrowheads shining with blue light shot out in all directions, and the sound of bowstrings being pulled rang out. Swish, swish. Countless blue lines shot out in all directions, illuminating this part of the world. For a moment, the sky was filled with horrifying screams. There was nowhere to hide from the rain of arrows. Even if they managed to dodge one arrow, they wouldn't be able to dodge the countless arrows. They didn't know what these arrows were made of, but they could easily break through the protective energies. Regardless of whether the depth of the arrows was fatal or not, as long as they were hit by the arrows, their bodies would immediately emit black smoke, and their eyes would roll back as they fell to the ground. Wave after wave of arrows were shot out, and the people in the sky kept falling. The people on the ground fell like wheat being reaped. The attackers couldn't get close at all. If there was a fish that slipped through the net or an expert that barged in and launched a fierce attack, the yellow-armored soldier would immediately put together the shield in his hand and burst out a towering yellow pillar of light to counteract the fierce attack. The purple-armored soldier would immediately brandish his huge sickle to kill. Often, several sickles would hook onto a person at the same time, tearing them apart or cutting them into pieces. Chapter 1101. Countless soldiers in white armor, each holding a halberd, swept across the Minghuang Mountain like a whirlwind. Wherever there were strong enemies, they would come to help. They waved their halberds and swore to defend the Minghuang Mountain with their lives. The whole Minghuang Mountain was a combination of long-range and short-range attacks. It was as solid as an iron bucket. Wave after wave of fierce attacks were repelled. Just as the attackers retreated in fear, they saw countless broken limbs falling down from the Minghuang Mountain. Corpses piled up at the foot of the mountain. Blood flowed everywhere, and the thick smell of blood filled the air. Some bloodthirsty monsters couldn't bear to give up on the delicious food in front of them. They didn't retreat with the troops. Instead, they lay on the piles of corpses and ate them. Immediately, dozens of blue lights shot out from the mountain. The monsters couldn't dodge in time. After being hit by the arrows, they fell down with black smoke rising from their bodies, becoming one of the piles of corpses. In the distance, many forces belonging to the Minghuang Palace knew that someone was attacking the Minghuang Palace. Therefore, they came from all over the underworld to help the king. The rebellious army of Dark Nether had also gathered a large number of troops from all directions. Their numbers and strength were obviously superior to the troops sent to rescue the emperor. Both sides were engaged in a fierce battle in the surroundings of the Minghuang Mountain. Standing on the white light shield, the silver-armored Thousand Soldiers looked down at the Minghuang Mountain. Seeing that another attack had been repelled, he said solemnly, "Something is wrong. It doesn't look like the Black Pool Bitch's force is rebelling. There are other forces adding fuel to the fire. Immediately send a message to the army stationed in the Endless Horizon to bring all the Purgatory army here." The other 3 were slightly shocked. The purple-armored Ao Jun said, "I'm afraid this is not appropriate. The Purgatory army needs to suppress the countless prisoners in the Endless Horizon. If the army brings all the Purgatory army here, once the prisoners escape, they will become a great threat to the Minghuang Palace. You should know that all the prisoners in the Endless Horizon hate the Minghuang Palace to the core. The silver-armored thousand soldiers took a deep breath of the thick smell of blood in the air and shouted coldly, "Kill! Let the army execute all the prisoners immediately." "Execute all the prisoners?" the three of them exclaimed in shock at the same time. After so many years, there were already over 100 million prisoners imprisoned in the endless horizon. What did it mean to kill all of them? Huang Jiaxingjun sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "There are nearly 100 million prisoners imprisoned in the endless horizon. They are the coolies who forge weapons for the Dark North Palace. If we kill them all, we will cut off the source of our weapons, and in the future, we will be suppressed by the immortal realm. An army of 1,000. You should think twice before you act. You worry too much." The silver-armored thousand soldier waved his hand and pointed at the densely packed rebel army that was rushing over from afar. He said sternly, "Kill all the prisoners in the endless horizon. After that, there will be many more people here to replace them. Why worry about the endless horizon running out of coolies? You've heard the news from the immortal realm. Once the immortal palace collapses, the entire force of the immortal palace will immediately collapse. We can't afford to lose the underworld royal palace. It is the symbol of the underworld sovereign's rule over the underworld. Once the underworld royal palace falls, people's hearts will change. No one will take the risk to come to our aid. So, what we need to do is to kill the rebels at all costs and protect the underworld royal palace until the underworld sovereign returns. As long as the underworld royal palace stands in the underworld, as long as the symbol of the underworld sovereign's rule over the underworld remains, those who have ulterior motives will not dare to act recklessly. Do you understand what I mean?" The three of them looked solemn and immediately understood the seriousness of the matter. Purple-armored proud soldier said in a low voice, "I will send a message to Zhang Jun, not just you." The silver-armored thousand soldier pointed at the three of them and himself and said, "If you alone send a message to him to kill over 100 million prisoners in the endless horizon, Zhang Jun will definitely hesitate. After all, the responsibility is too great. The four of us must all send a message to him, explaining the seriousness of the matter and urging him to make a decision immediately." "Okay." The four of them agreed without hesitation. They all took out jade talismans, wrote down the contents, and crushed them. However, because of this decision, when the red-armored soldier in the endless horizon received the message from the four of them, he immediately pulled on the red iron chains around his body. His entire body was filled with murderous intent. He immediately sent the bloodiest and cruelest order in history to his subordinates. For a moment, the entire endless horizon was filled with miserable screams. Roar! A deafening roar suddenly came from the sky. The silver-armored thousand soldier and the other three quickly looked up. They saw a green shadow flashing in the dense dark clouds. The green giant snakes that were sneakily attacking in the sky all scattered in fear. A snake head the size of a small mountain, glowing with green light, broke through the dark clouds and reached out. Its body, which was 100 meters long and 5 meters in diameter, was faintly discernible in the dark clouds. Although it looked similar to the other green snakes, it was 4 to 5 times the size of the other green snakes. On the head of the green snake that was the size of a small mountain, glowing with green light, grew 2 ferocious and translucent horns that looked like green crystals. 2 large red eyes flickered. Between the 2 shining red eyes stood the cold and elegant Lady Blackpool. Her black dress fluttered in the bloody night wind. Behind her, between the 2 horns of the giant snake head, stood a man in a black robe. He wore a black bamboo hat that covered half of his face and held a monk staff with many earrings in his hand. His face couldn't be seen clearly, making him look rather mysterious. A clear and melodious giggle sounded in the bloody night sky. Lady Blackpool covered her mouth and looked at the top of Minghuang Mountain with a smile. "Silver-armored thousand soldier. You have always been bossy and rude to me. I bet you never dreamed that this day would come." A halberd suddenly appeared in the silver-armored thousand soldier's hand. He waved his arm and pointed at Lady Blackpool from afar. He yelled, "Bitch Blackpool! How dare you show yourself? You are still so stubborn even when you are about to die." Lady Blackpool looked at the entire Minghuang mountain with disdain. She looked at the 4 armored soldiers on the mountain and clicked her tongue. I didn't expect Bai Qi to have so many people hidden in the dark. All of them are well equipped. It seems like Bai Qi really invested everything he had. No wonder we couldn't take them down after such a long time. She turned to the man with the monk's staff and bamboo hat behind her and nodded, "Big brother. I didn't expect Bai Qi to be hiding his true strength from me. Minghuang Mountain is heavily guarded by them. Normal warriors can't even get close to them. It seems like I need to take action personally, big brother." The man with the monk's staff slightly nodded. Silver-armored 1,000 soldier and the others heard Lady Blackpool calling the man "big brother" and were confused. Since when did Blackpool have a big brother? Silver-armored 1,000 soldier pointed his halberd at the man in the bamboo hat and yelled, "Who are you? How dare you rebel with this slut? Could it be that you're tired of living?" Without saying a word, the man in the bamboo hat took out a few human heads with tangled hair and threw them to the peak of the Minghuang mountain. The silver-armored 1,000 soldier caught the heads with his halberd and took a closer look at them. He was shocked when he saw their faces. He raised his head and glared at the man in the bamboo hat. "You are the king of the Black Mountain?" These people were none other than the people he had sent to investigate the origin of the mysterious king of the Black Mountain in the clear underworld. Now that the other party had suddenly thrown out these heads, their identity was self-evident. Half of the man's face was hidden under the large bamboo hat and he did not answer. He suddenly raised the staff in his hand and shook it. On the pumpkin-shaped head of the staff that was protected by 9 large rings, dozens of earrings in the 9 large rings rang. Ding-ling-dang-lang. The crisp sound of the earrings resounded through heaven and earth. Immediately, 9 pitch-black whirlwinds swayed out from the head of the staff and flew into the night sky that was filled with the smell of blood. The 9 whirlwinds, which were originally only the size of a fist, suddenly expanded, forming 9 black tornadoes that connected the heavens and the earth. In an instant, heaven and earth changed color, and the tornadoes twisted and dragged on the ground, howling as they surrounded the Minghuang mountain. The people fighting on the ground didn't care whether they were friend or foe. As long as they got close to the 9 black whirlwinds, they would be sucked in by a powerful suction force. As long as they were swallowed, they would scream and die. The 9 black tornadoes were like scavengers. Wherever they went, the densely packed crowd and corpses were immediately cleaned up. Everyone was so frightened that they all retreated far away, leaving clear marks on the ground as they passed. In just a short while, the 9 black tornadoes surrounded the Minghuang mountain from all directions. The soldiers all over the mountain couldn't help but look at each other in horror at the sight of the terrifying tornadoes. They didn't know how to deal with them. A huge purple scythe appeared in the hands of the proud purple-armored soldier, a wide blue bow appeared in the hands of the blue-armored soldier, a shield covered with inscriptions appeared in the hands of the victorious yellow-armored soldier, and a long-handled broadsword appeared in the hands of the victorious yellow-armored soldier. All of them looked very serious. Before the 9 black whirlwinds could reach the foot of the mountain, the silver-armored soldier waved his halberd and roared, "Attack the target." The other 3 also roared, "Attack." In an instant, countless blue arrows were shot toward the 9 whirlwinds. Yellow light burst into the sky, trying to stop the approaching whirlwinds. White light and purple scythe shadows burst forth, but they seemed to have no effect on the 9 black whirlwinds. The whirlwinds didn't stop at all, ding-ling-dang-lang. The earrings on the staff rang again, and the countless blue arrows that had been swallowed by the tornado suddenly shot back. Instantly, a large number of soldiers on Minghuang Mountain fell to the ground. The tornadoes stepped onto the Minghuang Mountain almost instantaneously, and with a series of clanging sounds, 9 tornadoes circled around the entire Minghuang Mountain from the foot of the mountain, forming a formation that spiraled upward. The desperate resistance of the soldiers on the mountain had no effect. Wherever the whirlwinds passed, they were easily sucked in and devoured. Immediately, the Minghuang mountain experienced a catastrophe that hadn't been seen for a long time. Miserable screams rang out one after another. Despite the cruelty of the situation, none of the soldiers in the four-colored armor tried to escape. In their desperate resistance, they could only watch helplessly as they were swallowed up by the whirlwinds. The silver-armored soldier and the other three glared at them. These were their trusted disciples who had followed them for many years. Chapter 1102. Seeing the 9 spiraling tornadoes devouring the lives of the soldiers on the mountain, Lady Blackpool, who stood on the snake's head and watched silently, suddenly giggled and said, "1,000 soldiers. If the 4 of you kneel down and submit to me, I will consider letting you go." Shameless bitch. You are just a bitch who flatters the Emperor of Hell. You are not worthy of us submitting to you. Silver Armor 1,000 soldiers waved his halberd and shouted angrily. Lady Blackpool snorted coldly and turned to the man in the bamboo hat behind her. She gritted her teeth and said, "Big brother. We must capture this person alive. I will make him suffer a fate worse than death. Brothers, let's break it together." Silver Armor 1,000 soldiers pointed his halberd at the spiraling tornadoes. The 3 of them responded in unison, "We will obey. Let's go." Silver Armor 1,000 soldiers rushed out with his halberd in hand. The 3 of them followed without hesitation. The 4 of them rushed to one of the tornadoes and attacked at the same time. 4 rays of light that shook the heavens and the earth shot out together. Boom! The air vibrated violently and instantly shattered the tornado. However, the wind was shapeless and the clouds were shapeless. The clanking sound from the earrings of the monk's staff sounded again. The scattered tornado instantly condensed and formed again. The happy expressions on the 4 of their faces froze. Ding-ling-dang-lang, the sound of the monk's staff seemed to contain an inexhaustible amount of magic. The tornado suddenly split into 4 and surrounded the 4 of them. Then, the tornado once again formed into a tornado, wrapping the 4 of them in the eye of the tornado. The eye of the tornado was filled with great pressure. At the same time, countless tangible wind blades were condensed and attacked the 4 of them. Not good. Silver Armor 1,000 soldiers used all his strength to strike with his halberd. The force was instantly dissipated by the spinning tornado. He immediately shouted, "Hurry, let's work together and open a way out." The wind whistled past their ears, and it was almost impossible to hear what they were saying to each other. However, the 4 of them could be said to be of one mind, and they simultaneously attacked in the same direction. Hong! 4 powerful rays of light instantly broke open a gap, and the 4 of them immediately teleported out. Almost at the same time that the 4 of them left, the gap closed. The 4 of them quickly returned to the top of the mountain. Looking at the tornado that continued to spiral towards the top of the mountain, then looking at their subordinates that were constantly being devoured, a trace of sorrow flashed across their faces. It wasn't that they didn't want to risk their lives, but they simply couldn't do anything about this strange tornado. They had a feeling of helplessness, as if they had nowhere to use their strength. "We can't let our brothers die in vain," Huang Jiashengjun cried out in sorrow. Silver-armored 1,000 soldiers' bones creaked, knowing that they couldn't hold the Minghuang mountain for much longer. Just as he was about to order everyone to retreat, a furious roar came from the distance. "How dare you!" This voice was so familiar. The 4 of them shuddered, their faces full of joy. "The Emperor of the Underworld is back," the silver-armored soldier exclaimed. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound, only to see a white light and a golden glow cutting through the night sky. "Jin Tai! Help me kill these traitors!" The angry roar resounded through the sky again. The white light suddenly shot out a black light toward the ground. The black light instantly expanded in the shape of a fan. The light engulfed and strangled the crowd below. Suddenly, there was a series of screams. Countless people were turned into ashes under the rotating strangulation of the black light. The Emperor of the Underworld is back. Someone shouted in fear. The name Emperor of the Underworld was a very powerful deterrent in the underworld. Countless people immediately fled without a care in the world. At the same time, a golden rod instantly grew to several hundred meters long. It spun as it was tossed out. It rushed into the crowd below and began to hit them without restraint. Amidst the rumbling sounds, screams rose and fell. People fled in all directions, unable to resist. The two streaks of light, one golden and one white, killed countless people in an instant. The two of them passed through the tornadoes and landed on the white barrier. The silver-armored soldier and the other three bowed in unison and said, "Greetings, Emperor of the Underworld, greetings, Immortal Emperor." Bai Qi waved his hand and didn't pay attention to the four of them. He looked around at the 9 tornadoes with a gloomy expression. Listening to the incessant screams and seeing so many core forces of the Immortal Palace rapidly dying, Jin Tai's expression changed even more. Now that his Immortal Palace's forces had collapsed, he needed to borrow Bai Qi's forces to rebuild the immortal world. If he allowed Bai Qi's forces to collapse as well, he wouldn't have any forces left to take control of the immortal world. You dare to show off your insignificant skills here? See how I break it. Jin Tai shouted and spat out golden powder from his mouth. The powder turned into 9 golden clouds and rushed towards the 9 tornadoes. In an instant, they were all swallowed by the tornadoes, and the black tornadoes turned into a dark golden color in the blink of an eye. The dark golden light flashed in the tornadoes and the 9 tornadoes slowed down in an instant. The golden powder inside was spinning in the opposite direction to counteract the speed of the tornadoes. The power of the tornadoes lay in their rotation. Since they couldn't rotate anymore, they naturally couldn't become tornadoes and wouldn't have any destructive power. In the blink of an eye, the 9 tornadoes were annihilated, leaving only 9 golden dragons that connected the heaven and earth. Jin Tai opened his mouth and sucked the 9 golden dragons back into his stomach. It was a miraculous feat. Everyone on the mountain looked at Jin Tai with cold eyes. An immortal emperor was indeed an immortal emperor. Even the 4 underworld generals couldn't break it, but he just opened his mouth and broke it. The arrival of the Emperor of the Underworld and the Immortal Emperor gave the majority of the people on the mountain a sense of relief. Bai Qi glanced at Jin Tai and didn't expect him to do this. Jin Tai expressionlessly looked at the head of the giant snake in the sky and said, "I didn't expect someone in the underworld to know the wind manipulation technique. There was one in the immortal realm, but it was sealed by me." In front of the people, he still acted like an emperor and didn't feel like a stray dog. He turned to Bai Qi and asked, "Bai Qi, how did you do it?" "Hey Qi, this little bitch, has been nurtured by you for a long time, but she still dares to bite you, her master. I told you to give her to me, but you didn't want to do it. Now, you have raised a tiger and brought disaster to yourself." Bai Qi coldly stared at Madame Hei Qi and shouted, "Bitch! Come over here and kneel." His shout scared many people. The power of the Emperor of the Underworld had seeped into their bones. Many soldiers of the army of the Underworld were already running away quietly. Even the Madame of Blackpool, who had been flattered by the Underworld Emperor for a long time, couldn't help but tremble in fear when she heard Bai Qi's stern shout. She almost knelt down and begged for mercy. However, it was just a momentary illusion. She had been preparing for this day for so many years. Madame Hei Qi took a deep breath and giggled at Bai Qi, "Your Majesty, the Emperor of the Underworld." "Ah. How come this title is so hard to pronounce?" "Well, you joined hands with Jin Tai in the immortal realm, but you were defeated by the sect master of the Heartless Palace, Wang Qing. What right do you have to be the Emperor of the Underworld? Bai Qi, do you think you are qualified to control the Underworld Palace and enjoy the honor of the Emperor of the Underworld? Bitch! I will give you one last chance. Otherwise, you will be tortured for the rest of your life. Bai Qi said word by word, kneel down and accept your punishment. Ah! Madame He Qi suddenly laughed seductively. Bai Qi. If you kneel down and submit to me, I definitely won't kill you. I'll definitely spare your life and let you be my exclusive male pet. No matter if I'm in the netherworld, the human world, or the immortal world, I'll keep you by my side to serve me. What do you think? Bai Qi was so angry that he laughed. Good. 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 You are so daring. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? Bai Qi. Madame He Qi suddenly interrupted him. She recovered her cold and noble expression and said indifferently, hand over the obsidian hell light mirror, give up the throne of the Emperor of the Underworld, and surrender to me. Otherwise, today will be the day you die. You want to be the Emperor of the Underworld? Do you think you are qualified? Bai Qi slowly raised the obsidian underworld light mirror in his hand and asked. Jin Tai glanced at it. There was a sword mark left by the unmoved sword drawing style, but on the way here, the two of them found that the sword mark had disappeared. It was very magical. Bai Qi. It seems that this bitch has found a new backer. Otherwise, she would not dare to be so presumptuous. Jin Tai looked at the man in the bamboo hat standing between the horns of the giant snake in the air. He found that the man had the cultivation of the last stage of the Emperor of the Underworld. He snorted coldly, wearing a bamboo hat, hiding your head and tail. Are you afraid to meet people? The silver-armored soldiers on the side quickly cupped their hands and reported to Bai Qi, who was also paying attention to the man, Emperor of the Underworld. This man is the king of the Black Mountain. Bai Qi and Jin Tai looked at each other. The man in the bamboo hat slowly took off the bamboo hat on his head and revealed his original appearance. He looked at Jin Tai with sharp eyes and said indifferently, Jin Tai. We finally meet again. Jin Tai was startled when he saw the man's face. After a while, he said in surprise, You are Wu Feng? You are the king of the Black Mountain? Wu and He agreed. The reason why I hid my name was because of you. The king of the Black Mountain, Wu Feng, said indifferently. Wu Feng. The sect master Wu Feng of the number 1 sect in the immortal realm, the wind evolution sect that you destroyed? Bai Qi also asked Jin Tai in surprise. Jin Tai didn't reply to Bai Qi. He looked at the king of the Black Mountain, Wu Feng, and said, You became a meditation cultivator after you died? I was wondering why the Imperial Wind technique looked so familiar. But it is amazing that you can cultivate to the last stage of the Emperor of the Underworld in these years. The king of the Black Mountain, Wu Feng, said indifferently, It is nothing amazing. It is only because I cultivated the Imperial Wind technique that I was fortunate enough to devour a wind spirit. So after you killed me, I was able to maintain my cultivation and consciousness. However, I can't compare to you. I can't restore the flesh and blood body of the immortal realm. I can only turn to the underworld and cultivate again. Jin Tai, you are a metal spirit. I believe you know the secret better than anyone. You devoured a wind spirit? Jin Tai's face was dark. Bai Qi looked at Jin Tai in surprise and said, You are a metal spirit? The king of the Black Mountain, Wu Feng, continued to speak indifferently. Before this, I couldn't be sure if you were a metal spirit or not. But I received news that after my son, Wang Qing, destroyed your flesh and blood body, you were able to reform it. Only then did I confirm that you are a metal spirit. It is laughable that you shamelessly boasted about cultivating an indestructible golden body. What a joke! Chapter 1103. Everyone turned to look at Jin Tai. Most of them had a look of confusion in their eyes. They didn't know what the metal spirit and wind spirit were, but those like Bai Qi who knew were all shocked. However, they were even more shocked that Wang Qing was the son of King He Shan, Wang Qing is your son. How is that possible? Jin Tai said with a gloomy face. Nothing is impossible. Jin Tai's despicable and shameless personality forced me to prepare myself. After the wind-spread sect experienced the calamity of destruction, Wu Feng left behind two bloodlines in the immortal world. Other than Wang Qing, Wu Xiong is also my son. Recalling the past, the king of the Black Mountain Wu Feng could not help but sigh. It's precisely because of the huge financial resources I plundered from the netherworld that the heartless palace created by Wang Qing could reach where it is today, and that Wu Xiong could become the great commander of the immortal palace's external affairs. Wu Xiong? No wonder, it really was a deliberate scheme. Jin Tai sneered. Jin Tai. Today is the day you end the Wu family. Madame Blackpool gritted her teeth and stared at Jin Tai angrily. Jin Tai snorted and stared at her coldly. Who are you in the Wu family? Madame Blackpool said word by word, Wu Yunfang. Jin Tai said, I remember you. The Wind Development Sect did have such a person. However, it was too long ago. If I remember correctly, you weren't as beautiful as you are now. Otherwise, I would have taken you in as a concubine in the immortal palace. You wouldn't have the chance to be pampered by Bai Qi. You also became a meditation cultivator. Did you devour some wind spirit? Because I didn't devour the wind spirit, I couldn't condense a nether body and recover my original appearance. If Big Brother didn't use the wind spirit to protect my soul and find a nether body to possess, I wouldn't have the chance to witness your retribution. Madame Blackpool said angrily. You weren't very pretty in your previous life, and even after you died, you still needed to find a beautiful body double. Women really do love to be beautiful. You should be thanking me, otherwise, how could you have the chance to become so beautiful? Kim Tai laughed loudly, then turned to look at Bai Qi with a strange expression and said, Bai Qi. I find it strange. Although you are the emperor of the underworld, the king of the Black Mountain is your brother-in-law. Your brother-in-law colluded with your woman to rebel against you. What is going on? Bai Qi glanced at him and coldly said, You shut up. This slut is just a toy for me to vent my anger on. How can a piece of trash like her, who has been ridden by thousands and slept with tens of thousands, be worthy of being my woman? That's true. Jin Tai nodded his head seriously. Madame Blackpool was so angry that her body trembled. Big Brother. Help me catch him alive, help me catch him alive. Whoosh. The king of the Black Mountain staff paused for a moment, then he looked down and said, The Emperor of the Underworld and the Immortal Emperor have fallen to the point of using words. This means that they have reached the end of the road. Why do you care about it? Bai Qi. Hand over the obsidian hell-light mirror, and I will spare your life. Bai Qi nodded silently. Both of you are eager to get the obsidian hell-light mirror, so it seems that you already know the secret of the mirror. I can give it to you, but both of you want it, so who should I give it to? Kim Tai's eyes flickered as he looked at the mirror in his hand, trying to figure out the secret hidden within. Bai Qi. You don't need to sow discord between us. Madame Blackpool said disdainfully, I have no intention of fighting for power, I just want to be free and unfettered. Think about it, the Emperor of the Underworld will be my brother, and the Immortal Emperor of the Immortal World will be my nephew. Where in the three realms won't I be free? The obsidian hell-light mirror will naturally be given to my big brother. As soon as this was said, Kim Tai laughed wildly. After a while, he said sternly, I am still here. Who in the immortal world dares to call himself an emperor? The immortal world has my son, Wang Qing, guarding it. Is there still a place for a stray dog like you? The king of the Black Mountain, Wu Feng, said indifferently, Today is the day you die. Ha! Wu Feng, I could kill you back then, so I can still take care of you now. Kim Tai pointed at the two siblings with a ferocious expression. I was just worrying about how to deal with that madman, Wang Qing. I didn't expect you two to deliver yourselves to me. I can capture you and use you as a hostage to force Wang Qing to submit." As he spoke, an illusory golden hand rushed out from the top of Kim Tai's head. With a whoosh, it grabbed the two siblings standing on the snake's head with lightning speed, instantly dispersing the dark clouds in the sky. Madame Blackpool was shocked. She teleported behind her brother. The king of the Black Mountain waved his staff casually. With a whoosh, a huge shadow appeared and struck forward like a pillar supporting the heavens. With a loud bang, a huge shockwave dispersed the dark clouds in the sky. The countless green snakes hidden in the dark clouds were revealed on the spot and scattered in all directions in fear. The golden hand shadow was instantly destroyed by the staff shadow. Kim Tai's body swayed slightly as he looked at the staff in the Black Mountain King's hand with a shocked expression. Bai Qi was also slightly shocked. He shone the obsidian hell light mirror in his hand towards the sky. Thousands of black lights burst out, wanting to strangle the two siblings in the sky in one fell swoop. The illusory huge staff shadow disappeared. Ding-ling dang-lang sounded hurriedly like the sound of a Sanskrit mantra resounding through the world. The staff in the Black Mountain King's hand stirred in the direction of the Minghuang Mountain. A dark whirlwind erupted from the tip of the staff and expanded. The black light shot by the obsidian hell light mirror was instantly absorbed by the dark whirlwind. At the same time, a powerful suction force was dragging the obsidian hell light mirror in Bai Qi's hand. The more he tried to use the black light to resist, the stronger the suction force became. It was as if the suction force was trying to take away his treasure. Bai Qi was shocked. He forcefully stopped the black light shot out from the mirror and quickly put away the obsidian hell light mirror. Kim Tai could naturally see that something was wrong. He stared at the sky and said in a deep voice, "What a powerful treasure. It shouldn't be something unknown, but I've never heard of it. Bai Qi, have you heard of it? When did such a treasure appear in the three realms? I can see that he hasn't mastered it yet. It seems like he can't fully unleash the treasure's power." Bai Qi looked at the sky and shook his head in doubt, indicating that he didn't know either. The Black Mountain King in the sky was relieved after defeating their attacks. He laughed and said, "This treasure is an ancient god's treasure left in the Netherworld Palace by the coiling dragon god after he killed an ancient god called the Wind God. It's called the Wind God Staff. Those who don't have the wind attribute can't use it. I happen to get it. This is heaven's will. Kim Tai. I bet you didn't even dream that I would get the ancient god's treasure. Huh. Today is the day you die." The monk's staff in his hand clanked, and dozens of earrings bounced. The dark whirlwind abruptly expanded into a sky-covering net, directly wrapping the entire Minghuang Mountain in it. The sky-coiling whirlwind twisted and spun rapidly, changing the color of the sky and filling the entire space with whistling noises. Madame Blackpool, who was standing on the snake's head, took a few steps forward. She held one of the snake's horns and looked down at the Minghuang Mountain that was covered by the whirlwind. She gritted her teeth and said, "Brother, leave Bai Qi alive for me to vent my anger." The Black Mountain King, Wu Feng, glanced at her and frowned slightly. However, he didn't say anything. He retracted the staff in his hand and put the end of the staff on the snake's head. The dozens of earrings on the 9 arcs of the staff kept spinning on their own. It was very strange. The people who were trapped on the Minghuang Mountain turned pale with fright. It was as if they were trapped in endless darkness. The strong wind wrapped around them like sharp blades. The strong tearing force instantly pulled many people into it. Countless screams sounded. Those who were pulled into it were cut into pieces in the blink of an eye. Not even their bones could be seen. The soil and stones on the mountain were blown up like meteors, and there were rumbling sounds everywhere, forcing everyone to release their protective aura to resist. However, this increased the wind resistance, making it even more difficult to resist the strong wind. Those whose cultivation was not strong enough were swept away by the strong wind, leaving only screams in the whistling and ear-piercing hurricane. In just a few moments, almost all the people on the mountain were killed. Seeing this, Bai Qi's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. These were his trusted subordinates, whom he had spent countless years training. Suddenly, he lost his elegant demeanor. He used all his strength to attack the approaching wind. Jin Tai and the others also attacked with all their strength. However, the treasures left behind by the ancient god were not to be underestimated. The endless power made their attacks disappear like clay oxen in the sea. They couldn't see any effect. Instead, they tended to increase the power of the wind. Jin Tai. Didn't you say that the wind-riding art was a small trick? Where is the way to break it? Bai Qi turned around and shouted angrily. Jin Tai looked at the approaching wind and replied angrily, "This is not a normal wind-riding art. It is the power of the wind god magic treasure. How can I break it?" Huang Jia, who had lost all his subordinates, shouted angrily, "Your subordinate will open the way for the emperor of the underworld." The shield in his hand emitted a dazzling light, and he rushed toward the approaching wind with the shield. "Sheng Jun, come back. You can't stop it." Bai Qi reached out his hand and roared. His face was distorted. "Sheng Jun! Sheng Jun! Sheng Jun!" Silver-armored thousand soldiers and the others cried out involuntarily. They could only watch as Huang Jia, who was protected by a faint yellow light, desperately tried to resist the wind. However, the power of the wind was too strong. It was so strong that even Bai Qi and Jin Tai didn't dare to act rashly. How could he resist it? He resisted for a while in the strong wind. The yellow light on the shield became weaker and weaker. In the blink of an eye, it was completely blown away, and the shield was forcibly blown away. Without the protection of the treasure, Sheng Jun was blown away like a thin piece of paper. He didn't even have time to scream before he was torn to pieces in front of everyone. He couldn't even keep his life, let alone open the way for the emperor of the underworld. Before the crowd had time to grieve, Jin Tai suddenly slapped his forehead and said, "There is change." The golden cloud rod in his hand suddenly grew bigger and bigger like a pillar supporting the sky. He stabbed directly into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the pillar that was several meters in diameter pierced through the wind and pierced the sky. A rapid sound of metal colliding came from the golden pillar. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.